My story was about you, Eragon. It is your fate to be a dragon rider. The Varden need a rider if they're going to defeat Durza and the king.
You know, talking's easy if you just make up the words.
My fate was about you, Genesect. We had to flip-top the blip-blorps over in the Shabadoo. Greetings, friends. Welcome back to Critically Acclaimed, the film review podcast where highbrow and lowbrow collide!
That was an explosion.
Insert explosion sound effect. My name is Whitney Seibold. I am a film critic for the internet. I write for various outlets, including criticallyacclaimed.net.
Criticallyacclaimed.net, the best website in the whole world.
And who the heck are you?
My name is William Bibiani. I am a film critic, also for the internet. I write for IGN and The Wrap, and also criticallyacclaimed.net.
That's right.
And we got a big episode for you today.
Huge. Well, not huge.
It's pretty big.
We
got pretty good about it.
We got a few new film reviews.
Well, in addition to the reviews of new films like Incredibles 2, Tag, Superfly, and Set It Up, we also have our big double feature this week. The fans of the show selected the notoriously forgettable fantasy epic that didn't spawn a franchise, Eragon, and we're going to pair that up with one of the best fantasy films ever made. And we also we're going to take a moment here to talk a little bit about our upcoming match at the Movie Trivia Schmoedown.
That's right. We're going to play in a match. We're going to butt heads with big brains.
The biggest ever because it's MODOK. MODOK
is named after maybe the second worst Marvel character after Fin Fang Foom.
Well, okay, I'm going to stop right there. They're
All
good
right.
characters with silly names.
Oh, they're good characters.
I think they're great characters. You ever read? There was
a giant goofy head with tiny arms and legs.
He's great. There was a great miniseries, I think it was called MODOK's 11, where MODOK assembled a team of has-been supervillains to perform the ultimate heist, and it was great. I like MODOK.
I think that's because you're riffing on the fact that he's a bad supervillain. It's
well,
like
maybe.
It's like when the Cartoon Network started up and they got the rights to all these really super crappy Hanna-Barbera characters that they didn't know what to do with. Mm-hmm. So they said, to heck with it, we'll give Space Ghost a talk show, and it was like the best thing ever.
Right. My favorite MODOK story ever, though, was in there was this all-ages Marvel's Avengers comic like 8 years ago or something, but it was for a while it was the best written Marvel comic. Like it was just
like
really
the superhero squad, right?
No. It was like that, but it was a real Marvel thing. It was just outside of continuity, and they had a lot of freedom to do a lot of funny stuff. Like, for example, Ego, the Living Planet, who a lot of people know now from Guardians of the Galaxy. He's a big planet with a face on it. They did an episode where Ego started trying to date the Earth, and the Hulk had to smash Ego and say, "Earth just want to be friends."
Okay, that's cute.
That was cute. And they had one where MODOK turned all of the Avengers into MODOKs.
Oh, jeez.
So there was Captain America as a MODOK. That's a funny story.
That's just a bored artist is what that is.
But it was really
I
cute.
just want to draw a sketch of Captain America with tiny limbs in his ears.
MODOK is, I don't remember if they actually officially said what their acronym is, but I like to think in the Movie Trivia Schmoedown, the online game show in which Whitney and I compete, for those of you who don't know it yet, you should, it's fun. I think it stands for Movie Organisms Designed Only for Knowledge.
That's good. That's
I like
good. It's like malevolent organism designed only for killing. Is that
It's mobile organism.
Mobile organism.
Organism designed only for killing. I think megalomaniacal. I don't know. But it's comprised,
whatever it is. It's dumb.
It's comprised of two of the nicest people in the industry, which I think is funny.
It's true. Gray Drake is just a sentient cloud of pleasantness, and Matt Atchity is no slouch. He's a smart, resolute, really kind of intimidating dude,
and just one of the nicest, most reliable humans I've met in the entire industry. And I'm really excited to play them in the Schmoedown, partially because they're smart. They've had a number one title spot You know, they're good, but also, like me in particular, they like to put on a show, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do for their big intro. Like, it's going to be really, really fun. I like to do big intros. They like to do big intros, and it's going to be really fun to see like what we each come up with and who's going to come up with the best intro. Like, honestly, I don't care about the game. I could lose. I don't care. I just want to see what they're going to do, and that's the thrill for me.
Okay.
So come back on Friday. Wait, is it Friday?
This Friday?
Is it this Friday or this Tuesday? Either way, it's this week.
This week.
This week, we've got a team match between me and Whitney Seibold and Gray Drake and Matt Atchity on the Collider Network. But we'll put up a link to it on the critically acclaimed.net website as well.
So if you like us, but you're not into the Schmoedown, that would be a great way to find us. Just go over to criticallyacclaimed.net, where all of our extra brain droppings and what have you are making their way.
Links to our work from other places, links to our other appearances, and also original content as well. And also, if you're on our Patreon page, patreon.com/canceledtoosoon, which is the name of our other podcast, there is a tier at which you can contribute to our shows and assign us articles to write for you.
You can dictate said content.
You can be our editor. And a lot of people have already sent in their submissions. Actually, quite a few. And it's really, really great. And almost like pretty much everything is like really interesting. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that existed. I can't wait to watch that and review it. So we're working through it as quickly as we can.
Yeah.
But let's move on. Let's move on to the new releases of the week. This is a weird week for me because for a variety of reasons, some of them Schmoedown related, some of them Father's Day related, some of them financial related, I didn't get to see everything. Because I didn't get to see even like, usually I like to at least see the big one, like the biggest thing, and I did not see Incredibles 2. So this is going to be a Whitney-only review. All I can do is say, that reminds me of a thing.
Well, I can involve you this way. What is your relationship with the first Incredibles from 14 years ago?
There's a lot I love about it. Okay. I think it is really dynamically presented. I love the character design and Michael Giacchino's just bombastic score.
Yeah, the score, which is it's not superhero, it's James Bond. And as a result, the whole movie feels kind of like James Bond and less like Marvel or any sort of superhero movie.
Yeah, I like what it has to like this early sort of indictment of toxic fan culture where there's a feel like there's an ownership of the people who create the superhero stories that we care about. That was kind of on the nose. The action is wonderful. The humor is great. I know a lot of people, and myself included, have criticized the film's sort of an atypical theme, which runs through a lot of Brad Bird's work, which is this sort of Randian, some people are more special than others kind of thing.
Yeah, and those people deserve to be our protectors and in charge.
Yeah, it's an odd thing that Brad Bird loves to bring up and not explore very well. Like, it's the thing that kind of like... I actually really like Tomorrowland, but he kind of sinks it at the end with this weird speech that you don't need, that really just sells that whole point, and some of you were better than others. Wait, whoa, that was not even the point of your movie. What the hell are you talking about? I liked it until then.
Yeah. In The Incredibles and in Tomorrowland and now in Incredibles 2, the villain characters give speeches that are, all right. Right on. Are we going to go down that path? Or no, they're the villains. You'll notice...
because Syndrome maybe had an okay idea about how supers are... That's what they call them in The Incredibles. They're supers and not superheroes. How supers are... You know, there needs to be an equalization there. They're not the most special thing in the world. But he takes it into a gross... too far ugly direction, and he gets people killed, and he is a villain. He's a villain who has a nugget of truth in there somewhere, and I think that's what makes a great villain.
Well, he's a villain who does, a maniacal thing, but his goal is to level the playing field. He's a self-made man who's trying to say everyone should be equal. He's an egalitarian, whereas Brad Bird is coming back saying, no, the people who are special should be in charge.
I would argue
there's very much a Randian streak.
I would argue he's a hypocritical egalitarian, because he says that, but what does he really want? He wants center stage. He wants to be in charge. He wants to be that special, separate someone. You notice he's created all this awesome technology. He hasn't given it to the world. He's using it for himself. That makes him just another super, basically.
The villain in Incredibles 2 has a very similar agenda. They are trying to use their own sort of self-made prowess and their lack of superpowers to level the playing field, saying that superheroes should remain illegal. The opening of Incredibles 2, it's immediately after the events of Incredibles 1, even though 14 years have passed.
Well, you can do that in animation, so that's kind of fun.
It's mostly the same cast. I think the character who plays Dash, the young boy, is a new actor.
I think that's what happens when you get a kid to play the character.
Yeah, but it's still Craig T. Nelson as Mr. Incredible. It's still Holly Hunter as Elastigirl. It's still Sarah Vowell as the teenage daughter.
Yay!
I love Sarah Vowell.
She's cool.
She's not an actress, though. She's an author, but this is kind of her one big claim to fame in terms of acting.
Acting-wise, obviously, as an author, she is quite famous.
Yeah. Read her books on American history. They're all terrific. But yeah, it's just been declared that superheroes are illegal, and
but they weren't before. They were in witness protection before. They're now illegal.
They're like living in a motel, and they're hiding out from the rest of the world.
Okay.
The people who have. A lot of people have had their memories erased. There's a connection to... I'm not sure if you ever saw Jack Attack, the short film...
Yeah, with the
babysitter.
Yeah, there was in the original Incredibles, there was this recurring gag where they had left their baby Jack with the babysitter, and when they came back, Jack his wild transformative powers had
manifested.
Yeah, and there was a short film that was on. I don't remember if they released it in theaters, but it was on the DVD of the Incredibles. That was basically that babysitter's story, and it's really funny.
It's really funny.
Yeah,
there's some connection to that short if you saw the short. But yeah, they're living in a motel. They're contacted by a hotshot sort of go-getter entrepreneur who loves superheroes and wants them to be legal again, and has arranged this covert public relations scheme to get them back into the public eye. And they think that the best way to do that is to give Elastigirl a new outfit and put her out on the streets and let her fight crime, just to sort of make sure everything's hunky-dory.
Give superheroes a good name again.
Yeah. And so she has her own plot where she's tracking down a supervillain. She develops a really good relationship with the entrepreneur's sister, who's played by Catherine Keener. There's a really terrific conversation they have where they just say really smart things, and it's really great to listen to them talk. Meanwhile, the Craig T. Nelson character is, in order to support his wife, has to stay at home with the kids, and he's never really done that, like, be a dad before. He's always been the working dad.
No, so it's Mr. Mom, but he's a superhero.
It's Mr. Mom, but he's a superhero. And it has nothing to do with the fact that he's a superhero. He just doesn't know how to be a dad. Although there is the funny recurring gag is that, he doesn't know really how to deal with the new math. Because the movie takes place in sort of this retro 50s futurist.
Well, there's just a lot
utopia.
of people in their middle age who are like really like uncomfortable with like the way we teach kids math now. And I can be honest, when I first heard about that, I was like, wait, what are they doing? And then I found out a little bit about it. I'm like, oh, that's way easier. You're right. This new math is amazing. I love this new math. I sucked at math when I was a kid. I wish they'd use that new math.
This version of math.
Just the way they teach it, the way to think about math. It's not rote memorization. It's actually computative. But like you can break it down into its base component parts. It's really great. I love it. I don't understand any old person who rejects the new math. It's so good.
The new math. And I was talking about the old new math from like the 60s when they first used the phrase new math. But yeah, he doesn't know how to teach his kid math, so he has to learn the new math. He has to deal with his teenage daughter's complaints about trying to she had attracted the attention of a hungy boy at school.
Yeah, this weird beatnik kid.
He had a
turtleneck.
He was like a star football player. He was like a popular kid.
I just remember him having a turtleneck.
And he asked her out on a date, and they were going to go out on a date, but he also saw her in her superhero costume and had to have his memory erased, so he forgot completely about her. So now she has that to deal with, and of course the biggest trial is that the 1-year-old baby now has like 17 new superpowers, and he doesn't know how to deal with any of it, so he's up 24 hours a day. There's a hilarious scene where the baby does battle with a raccoon that's invaded the backyard. And the baby's like shooting lasers from its eyes and stuff, and the raccoon is trying to like do ninja skills back. The two stories, of course, in a plot way end up intersecting, but I'm having difficulty trying to pluck out what the theme of these things are. It's just a dad learning how to be a dad, and that's a good story.
It sounds like just an inversion of the original, where mom is stuck at home with the kids, kind of frustrated but doing her best, and dad goes off and has his midlife crisis.
Yeah,
and goes and is a superhero again. Whereas in this case, the wife is going off, but this time it's the day job. But it sounds like it's just the same thing, but inverted.
But here's the thing: it's her day job, but she doesn't have any sort of crisis. Like, she's exhilarated to be out on the streets again, but it's still part of his crisis.
It just sounds so retro. My wife is going back into the workforce.
Yeah,
it's
that really, really openly retro. Like he even says, like, I'm really jealous that I'm the man. I'm supposed to be. He says these things out loud,
and he learns a valuable lesson, right?
Well, and he learns to be a better dad.
Okay.
It's impeccable. It's really amazingly put together. Just the script and the characters and the jokes and the pacing and the action, all of that is great. And there's nothing that's not enjoyable about it.
Okay. Well,
until you start thinking about the Randian stuff, because it's all creeping in there, about how the people who should be in charge are the ones that are superheroes. And it's there's all this Atlas Shrugged stuff that's just floating over everything, because the evil government institution is the one that's trying to keep the really talented people down, just like an Atlas Shrugged. The champions of industry are being held down by these governmental straw men.
There was that sort of Kafka-esque element in the original where Bob Parr,
the Parr family.
The Parr family. He works at an insurance company, and it's like this sea of cubicles, and he's got one next to like a column, so he has even less room in his cubicle, and he's got this like shitty boss who's just trying to keep everyone down and not pay out the insurance. There was this sort of anti-institution, sort of pro-individual element.
It's not that sort of Kafka-esque, living in a cubicle, the trial sort of stuff. It's more like the government is the one who understands that these people should be in charge, but they resent them, so they're going to try to keep them illegal and keep them out of the public eye as much as they can. And of course, there's this whole, there's like dozens of new superhero characters that show up. The villain, who calls himself the Screenslaver.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a stretch.
That's a terrible name.
Uses TVs and special goggles to hypnotize people.
So he's the Riddler in Batman Forever.
More or less.
Okay.
But, with the goal of freeing people from being distracted and not relying on superheroes to come to their own talents and look after themselves. Again, the villain has kind of a healthy message here, rather than rely on superheroes, maybe do it yourself.
Yeah.
But Brad Bird has this really icky habit of making that seem genuinely villainous. Just sit back, it's okay, let the people who are better than you take care of you.
And the reason we bring this up, isn't necessarily, because we've loved this at other Brad Bird movies, and I like, to some degree, every Brad Bird movie. Like, I think there's this weird thing, especially when you're aiming it at children, and you're making these big sweeping speeches, and you're saying that this is good, and I think at best this is questionable.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
That he's telling these Disney stories. I wouldn't say there's much of it in Iron Giant, but like Tomorrowland is full of it, Incredibles is full of it. Actually, Ratatouille is actually pretty democratic, but he didn't really spearhead that. He came onto the project late and, worked on it afterwards. Ratatouille is all about how anyone does have the potential for greatness. But, when he's working from the beginning, these things sort of filter in. And
Ratatouille and The Iron Giant are underdog stories about, outsiders who kind of work their way in or find a way to become comfortable. The Incredibles movies and Tomorrowland are about overdogs, and I think he feels more sympathy for overdogs.
Yeah. I interviewed Damon Lindelof. He wrote or co-wrote Tomorrowland. And we talked a little bit about that. And one of the things he said about it was, in Tomorrowland in particular, was it's a film in which he wanted to sell the message of we have to eat our broccoli. And we have it falls to all of us to do the right thing and to be the type of people who would make a better world. And I got the impression that Damon Lindelof, at least, and this is just the impression I got, and you can read that review, it's out there somewhere, But I got the impression that Damon Lindelof thought that the message was everyone has the potential to be this greatness, but it just comes across weird.
It's not sold that way. Yeah. It's that not that everyone has the potential. It's that some of us have the potential, and they're the ones who need to take up the mantle and make sure the rest of the world is safe.
I want to ask you something kind of purely plot related, and it's something that bothered. Ignoring themes for a minute, just something that bugged a lot of people about the original Incredibles, and I was hoping the sequel would address it. And The Incredibles, the whole idea was that superheroes were kind of a menace, and people thought they did more harm than good, and so they went undercover. And they went into Witness Protection Program, and they've been in hiding ever since. What happened to the supervillains? Like, why would they go into hiding if all the superheroes... That's like leaving the world wide open. We established that there are supervillains in that opening prologue in Incredibles 1.
You remember the epilogue of The Dark Knight? Or no, it was Batman Begins before The Dark Knight, where they said, if we start developing more sophisticated crime-fighting techniques, the criminals just become more sophisticated. So as soon as somebody like you shows up, Batman, what do we have? And we have this weird clown criminal all of a sudden. Like, just everything opens up. Maybe, in the absence of superheroes... there will be an absence of villains.
But it's not actually addressed.
No, it's not actually
because I know the Underminer shows up at the end, but it doesn't address why would they all leave. It seems like, like a fire sale.
The Underminer has a scene in this one, at the beginning of this one. It just rolls right in from the previous one. But it's an incident with the Underminer that
kicks everything
off.
Okay. But still, regardless of critique, still good?
Still good. It's trouble. It's like when we were talking about Deadpool 2. Deadpool 2 is hilarious. I loved watching Deadpool 2, but we were kind of nitpicking little plot details that bothered us.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of thing. I had a wonderful time. It's just great. I like it better than the first one.
Okay.
I know a lot of people held the first one in, I think a little too high of a regard.
Well, it
was quite good, but a lot of people said it was one of the best ever. It's scale it back a little bit.
Here's the thing about The Incredibles, and I think it's easy to forget what it was like at the time, because Incredibles was a very different kind of movie for Pixar at the time. It was a movie about...
I think it was the first one about human characters.
It was about human characters. It was an action movie, and it was doing a lot of things with superheroes that other movies hadn't really had the capacity to do yet. There was a whole world of superheroes. A lot of superpowers were realized in a way that other movies had struggled with. It basically did Fantastic Four better than any of the Fantastic Four movies, so it scratched that itch for a lot of people. It was a big fucking deal. And I get it. And it's still a really, really, really good movie. Moving on. I saw, and I don't think you did, Tag.
I did not see Tag. Tell me about Tag.
All right. Tag is a new comedy. It is ostensibly based on a true story, but based on... They show clips of the real people at the end, and you realize that the movie took liberties. But the idea is this. There's a group of childhood friends who have been cast as actors, some of whom are 12 years older than others, so just pretend.
It's like Jeremy Renner and John Hamm, and they're a
and they're Hannibal Buress, and you're just no, what the... Okay. They're not the same age, but whatever. The idea is this. Since they were kids, they've been playing the same game of tag. And as adults, they play tag throughout the month of May. And the game of tag, since they actually live in separate cities a lot of the time, involves them flying to other cities, getting jobs at everyone else's place of employment in disguise, and then tagging them, and then running away, and there's a huge parkour chase. And it's a funny idea. It's really, really funny because what they do and what the movie does at its best is it plays this very silly, childlike pastime. Not just a game, but just the fact that they take it so seriously is immature. And they play it like an action movie. And so there's a lot of chase scenes. There's a lot of slow-mo martial arts. And they do this fun thing that I haven't seen in a lot of in movies. And I kind of wish I'd see it more. Where I've been calling it thought bubble action scenes. You know, in comic books when there's a huge action sequence, but people are talking a lot or thinking in huge paragraphs.
There's paragraphs of dialogue in the course of a single punch.
Exactly. So what they do is they slow down the action so much. And we just hear what Jeremy Renner's thinking. Where it's just Hannibal Buress thinks he's got me from the side. Well, I'm going to duck this way and push him right into John Hamm. Oh, he touched John Hamm. Note to self, Hamm has the tag. That's actually, it's really, really fun.
It's like in Premium Rush, where he can like see the lines where he wants to ride his bike like in a split second.
I don't think we've talked about it much on this podcast, but just so everyone knows, Premium Rush is awesome.
Premium Rush is so friggin' great.
It's really entertaining.
One of the best action movies of the last decade.
I would say that's fair. Tag is not one of the best action movies or comedies, and that's part of the problem, is that precarious tone where it's trying to be a comedy and an action movie, and then in the middle of it, every once in a while, it tries to tug your heartstrings like James L. Brooks style. Like, it tries to get kind of, especially towards the end, it gets a little maudlin, and it doesn't earn that. It's chasing its own tone around. Like, that's the game we're really watching here, is the movie trying to find the right way to play itself. And when it nails it for like a scene or two, and you see this really hilarious thing where all of these guys have teamed up. Their friend, I think Jerry, played by Jeremy Renner, he has never been tagged the entire time. And he's never been tagged because he takes the game way more seriously than anyone else. There's a scene where they've gone back to their hometown to tag him. He is retiring after he gets married. But they have to sign a truce saying they won't tag him during wedding events. So they go to a wedding event, and then they wait until like 6 o'clock when it's over, and they count down, and then the chase is on. And he chases them, like they get in golf carts, and they chase down through a country club. And then he goes into like the wooded area outside the country club where Jerry has set up death traps, like logs that like fly through the air, and decoys that are dressed like Jerry.
How much of that was based on the true story?
Almost none of it. Yeah, like you can tell, but that's the fun of it, is when it goes really surreal and insane. But like, then I don't know what they were thinking, but there are bits of it where they start like, their passion for the game starts taking people down really dark avenues, and like what people will do in order to distract other players. Couple of them are monstrous. There's actually someone they actually threatened to waterboard someone once, and you're just like, and they don't do it, but like the fact that they almost did really kind of is just not funny. But then like there's this one thing someone does towards the end that even the movie stops. The movie itself just goes, okay, that's too far. That's, you know what? That's not funny. Maybe this has never been funny. Like, oh God. And then when you realize like what's really going on, it just makes everything kind of extra monstrous and strange. It never finds itself. And it's really frustrating because I love all these actors. Yeah. Sometimes it's really funny. Isla Fisher plays Ed Helms' wife. Ed Helms' wife, and she is more into it than anybody. Like, she's really like she's a fucking fury, and she's hilarious, and I love her. And there's this really annoying side plot where like so like the movie kicks off when John Hamm is giving an interview. He's like a businessman, and he's giving an interview to like the Wall Street Journal. And then Ed Helms, who is like a veterinarian, he has moved to a new town and got himself hired as a janitor at John Hamm's office. And he sneaks in during the interview, and like John Hamm like gets up in the middle of the interview and stops the interview and says, "Ha, you're trapped, John Hamm." And John Hamm's like, "No, I'm not." And he pulls a chair and he tries to break a window like right in the middle of the office. Jeez. And the reporter, who is played by Annabelle Wallis from The Mummy, who deserves way better material than she's been getting, she is, of course, curious, and she decides to write a human interest piece about this, which is what in fact actually happened. She is only there to have shit explained to her and to be as incredulous as the audience should be. But after a while, you're just like, we get it. She doesn't need to be here. We probably didn't need her at all. We already have a voiceover. So it's kind of bizarre. But then Isla Fisher has a whole bit where, you know, the reporter asks Isla Fisher, "Why aren't you playing?" And it's like, well, the boys came up with the rules when they were 9, and so no girls allowed. But then a huge part of the plot is about how they can make amendments to the rules. And you're just like, then what the fuck?
Let your wives play.
She's awesome and she loves it. Like, what the fuck? There's literally no reason. You guys are just dicks.
It sounds like this would have made a better, like, This American Life segment.
Yeah.
Like, you just talk to the guys who did it and they tell you why, and it takes, like, maybe 15 minutes, and that's all you really need.
Yeah, like, it could have been a really great short. Like, I would have, like, maybe, like, an Oscar-nominated short. Just the intensity of it and the gag and everything. It's really, 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 really funny. As a broad a feature-length film, it just doesn't sustain itself tonally, and every time it shifts, it feels like a bit of a betrayal. Like, oh, but I was watching that action movie. Why are you trying to make me cry now? It's not really going to work. It was stupid. and now it's serious, and you haven't quite nailed the transition. It's not bad. Like, it's entertaining. It's got a real energy to it, which I really like. And Jeremy Renner is made for this kind of thing, this kind of OP badass who, like, you know, will like do crazy acrobatics in a mall with like a walker. Like, he's really hilarious. In fact, everyone's really, really funny in it. It's just kind of a mixed bag. It made me think of, there's a really great movie. Well, that's an exaggeration. There's a really fun movie directed by Nick Castle, who he originally played Michael Myers in the original Halloween, and he went on to direct The Last Starfighter, one of my favorite movies. And he directed a movie called Tag the Assassination Game. Which is really fun. And it stars a young Linda Hamilton from Terminator, before Terminator, as a woman in college, and the college is having this all-campus game of tag, and people are playing it with dart guns. But then the guy who plays Jeffrey Combs' roommate in Reanimator,
okay,
he's never been tagged. He's the god of it, and when he gets tagged by accident by just some random dude, he goes insane and starts actually killing people.
Oh, that's funny.
And no one knows he's doing it.
That sounds amazing.
It's a really fun idea. It's a kind of a cheap movie, and you can tell like he was finding his like voice as a director, but it's a more fun, more sort of well-defined version of this. Okay. Unfortunately, it's not very well available, but it's online if you know where to look. So I would definitely check that out.
That tag.
Check out that tag, because that tag deserves a bigger audience than it's got. But this one's okay. Like, it'd be a good rental. Like, you know, if it's on Netflix sometime, awesome. But I wouldn't run out into a theater and see it. So tell me about Superfly.
Superfly is a remake of the 1972 classic,
which I've actually never seen that one.
I caught up with it before seeing this remake. I hadn't seen it before.
It's weird because, as far as I'm concerned, Superfly, it's embarrassing I haven't seen the film, because as far as I'm concerned, it has the best soundtrack of any movie ever.
Curtis Mayfield made one of the best film soundtracks with Superfly. It's all like funk and soul from the 1970s.
It's some of the best music you'll ever hear.
In fact, the song Pusher Man from the original soundtrack is played in its entirety in the remake without any alteration. It's not a cover, they just play it again.
Why would you change it?
Because it's
perfect.
And it's great, and you know it adds a lot of energy to the scene. This is made by a music video director by the name of Director X.
Yeah. And
Director X has taken a lot of what Superfly is really known for, that is its style, and just upped the style game. The story is pretty much the same. It's about a guy named Youngblood Priest, who is a cocaine dealer. He's not in Harlem anymore. This time he's in Atlanta. And he is weary of the game. He doesn't want to be a drug dealer anymore, and wants to make one last big score so he can, you know, make a bunch of money and get out. It's a little odd because the actor who plays Youngblood Priest this time around is 21 years old.
He looks really young.
He looks like a college kid.
I thought
he is a college kid.
Okay, I thought he was going to be like a rookie this time, but no, he's playing
the world weary one, and he's.
Do they play that up? Did they explain like he got started when he was like 13? Or?
Nope.
Okay.
Well, they do say that he did get a start when he was like 11.
Okay,
and we do get to see him.
So there's he's been at it for a while.
He's been at it for a while, but 21 and you run out, and there's
it's a tough gig.
It takes place in a weird cartoon universe of Atlanta, because there's a rival gang called the Snow Patrol, and they're dressed like G.I. Joe villains. Like, they'll have matching bright white outfits, and their guns are painted white, and the leader is played by the rapper Big Bank Black, and they're all just sort of playing it up to the point where they're all like sort of these cartoonish supervillains. And they're standing in Youngblood's way of making all of the big sales, and he just wants to get the coke and get out. And he, of course, also runs afoul of racist, corrupt police officers in Atlanta. If you're looking at this film from just the perspective of like a GQ style show, it's pretty great, because the outfits they put Priest in are terrific. He is like a Zen master in pleather, and he kind of moves really. And I don't know what they did to this man's hair, but good God,
I've seen the pictures. It's pretty stunning.
It's like Eraserhead by way of pomade, like by way of Ulysses Everett
but
McGill,
hot.
like hot Ulysses McGill kind of hairdo. It's really difficult to describe, but it is a thing of beauty. And he's young and attractive, and he has just as in the original, he has a girlfriend named Georgia. He also has another girlfriend named Cynthia, and they have a polyamorous relationship. And you'd think
like a healthy
polyamorous relationship. And it's presented as kind of matter of fact, like nobody brings it up. He has two bisexual girlfriends. They all live together, and it's great. And you think for a second that it's going to be saying something really progressive, that they're going to be having this, but after a while you'd realize that he's just sort of ordering these two women around, and it is eventually used to just sort of underline his own machismo, that he is able to sort of land these two women. There's a really, really steamy bathtub sequence in the original where Priest and Georgia just make out in a bathtub for a really, really long time.
Right.
In this new one, they do it one better by having a threesome in a shower, and it was so sexy that it got not a standing ovation, but it got an ovation in the theater where I saw it. It's like the sex scene's over. It's like, yep, you know what? We're all hot now, so thanks.
That's how it was the last time I had like a sexy ovation was Boy Next Door. When Jennifer Lopez and what's his name from Gem and the Holograms, like it was pretty steamy. People were just like, "Oh God!"
It was like, "Oh,
should we all make out? Like, what's going on? This is great."
We're all aroused. What's happening? And again, they're using these women to underline his masculinity, and then they treat one of the characters very, very badly by the end, and it all just sort of falls
and
apart.
not in a way that's justified or makes sense.
No, it's just offensive. In terms of like plot or like thought, there's not really a lot going on in Superfly, but it is kind of a stylishly pleasant experience to view at the end of the day. There are a few moments of catharsis, and one of the most wonderful. There's a car chase through the streets of Atlanta, and they end up having to drive through a public park. The bad guy's chasing the good guy. They swerve. Good guy swerves to miss an obstacle in his way. The bad guy slams into it. It turns out it's a Confederate monument, and it explodes, and the horse comes crashing down. Yeah, everybody's cheering at that. It's like, yeah, screw you. Confederate monuments in Atlanta parks. Let's just destroy those things. And then something else happens to a racist cop that is really quite fitting.
Well, that's
I wish there was something going on in its head. I'm not really sure why we need to revisit Superfly. You'd think that there could be some sort of statement as to, modern crime and, the way African American style has been co-opted or mutated over the years, or, the way African American machismo has changed over the years. And there's nothing to that. There's no ideas really in Superfly. They're really just trying to update the style of it.
The blaxploitation genre that emerged throughout a big chunk of the 70s and up until like the early 80s. I think The Last Dragon is considered the last proper one, but then you go into the 90s. The Last Dragon's great, but like then you had the 90s. They had the original Gangstas, and I think that's at least part of it.
In the 90s, it changed into something a lot more earnest and honest and realistic. Yeah, and it started having like crime movies like Boys in the Hood, and
that wasn't quite
those
the
aren't
same
those
thing.
aren't blaxploitation movies.
No, but it's interesting because these were such prominent and well remembered films. You would think we would have more remakes. Yeah, you would think that would be more driving. Like I would love to see a reboot of Foxy Brown or Coffee, but where they are. And so Superfly is really exciting, and I've actually really wanted to go see it, and I just couldn't fit in my schedule, and that bums me out. The one I liked, and they're doing another Shaft, but I thought John Singleton's Shaft was pretty fucking kick-ass.
It's okay.
I like that one a lot. I think there's really exciting villains there, and Samuel L. Jackson gets that leading man role he almost never has, and he's really magnetic, and he's got some good conversations about the systemic racism in the police force and the justice system, and it gets a lot right, and I really like it a lot.
It's kind of clunky. I think Samuel L. Jackson is sort of, and Christian Bale are kind of as the
Wright is great in it too.
Who does Jeffrey Wright play? I don't know.
Hernandez.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's the other bad guy.
Oh, okay.
He's awesome.
I didn't remember Jeffrey Wright. I haven't seen it since it was in theaters.
And also, when that movie came out, Jeffrey Wright wasn't really Jeffrey Wright. at the time. Like, he'd been in a couple things. He was Basquiat already, but most people really weren't super aware of him as an actor, so I get it. But, like, yeah, that's a good flick, if you ask me. All right, and then the last one on our new release list is a film called Set It Up.
And it's the only one we both saw.
Yeah, weird how that works out. It is a new romantic comedy on Netflix that a lot of people are talking about. Like, I saw a lot of people talking about how great this new Netflix comedy is. I'm like, oh, damn, I guess I got to see this. So I watched it tonight, actually. Okay. And,
it's good. I like it.
I don't love it. So walk us through it.
Okay, so Zoe Deutsch and what's his name? Gordon.
Look it up.
And a guy.
Dudemar.
Dudemar.
The young Alan Ruck. That's
what I there you go. The Alan Ruck looking guy.
Glenn Powell.
Glenn Powell is his name. Zoe Deutsch, first of all, she's the next Drew Barrymore.
She's great.
She's a freaking star.
Undeniably steals the movie. She's amazing.
She's been amazing in films before. This is
Vampire Academy.
She was good in Vampire Academy. She was good in Everybody Wants Some.
I love that people have this like weird like Vampire Academy is kind of a sloppy movie in a lot of ways, but it has so many defenders. Like there's some people who really like that movie.
I will go to bat for Vampire Academy. I think it's quite enjoyable.
I think it has a lot of charms.
Yeah,
I don't think it's very well constructed as a story, but the vibe is great.
I think the plot sucks. Everything about the plot sucks. But Zoe Deutsch saves so much of that movie, as she does here. So she plays the assistant to Lucy Liu, who's a sports reporter and one of the best in the city. And she's also one of the worst bosses. She's very, very demanding. She treats her assistant like crap. Taye Diggs plays... I forgot what his line is, but he's also like a high-powered businessman who requires an assistant. He treats his assistant like crap. The two assistants meet each other. They find ways to like placate their bosses very briefly, and they start conferring that if they were
and they work in the same building.
They work in the same building, so they run into each other a lot, and they start conferring, and they figure, what if we just got our bosses laid? If we can get our bosses laid, they'll stop like picking on us and we'll have a little bit of time to ourselves.
And our bosses seem to have a lot in common, and we know everything about our bosses. You know, all we have to do is manipulate them slightly to get into the same room, and bada bing, our bosses are nicer to us.
This is something I think we can all relate to if you've worked for a really hard boss for a really long time. If they start dating somebody, they treat you a little bit nicer.
If the boss is happy, everyone else is happy.
Yeah. And in fact, the film opens up very smartly with a montage of a bunch of personal assistants that are just going out of their way to please their horrible bosses. And this film really understands that milieu of having a bad boss. Much more so than the film called Horrible Bosses.
Or Horrible Bosses 2.
Both of which are atrocities. Those are bad movies.
They are. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of either of those films.
And of course...
Although Chris Pine is really funny in the second one.
Well, and Christoph Waltz is funny in the second one. And Colin Farrell's funny in the first one. And there's funny stuff in them, but they still suck. I'm going to defend those movies.
I was defending Chris Pine.
Okay.
All right.
As if he needs defense.
Oh, clearly he needs
the man can defend himself. I appreciate that it understands just sort of what it is like to work for a bad boss. It's kind of predictable in that, you know, in setting up the bosses, these two are inevitably going to find that they have things in common and that they fall in love. But
you go to a romantic comedy for inevitability. That's part of the process. It's like going to a slasher. You want people to die. You want mismatched people to end up together at the end, learn something about themselves, go through cute experiences, and want them to be together. That's the point of a rom-com.
They each have Baxters. He's got a hot girlfriend that he doesn't have anything in common with. She has a guy that she just met on a dating site. And
he just vanishes halfway through the movie.
He's in a couple scenes and then they refer to... And the joke is that he's never there, that they haven't seen each other for a long time.
Yeah.
But again,
they just never resolve that. He just doesn't call her anymore, and that's it.
Yeah, and the plot complications,
which happens, but it's just weird.
The plot complications you'll be able to guess, and I think there's a lot of good moments of like honest confrontation throughout, and the nature of their relationships I think are played very, very well. It all comes back to Zoe Deutsch.
She's the star here.
Yeah.
Her and Lucy Liu, who I know she's got like a TV show, but I don't watch Elementary. But I was always a big fan of hers, and it's just nice to see her in a movie again with a real role, and she's really fun here. And I like her character a lot because although she is a demanding boss to a mean degree, she is a full character, and she's got a lot going on. Taye Diggs is playing a cartoon asshole.
Yeah.
And he can make that work okay, but like...
Well, plus he's Taye Diggs, one of the most handsome men in the world.
I was watching this with my wife, and we both realized something that's kind of almost refreshing. It's a critique, but it's almost refreshing to be able to say it. The male characters aren't written well. Like they're not particularly written well. Maybe that's by design, but like Taye Diggs is a cartoon asshole, and the male lead, Glenn Powell, at least they address it by the end, but his whole thing is his character wants to be an asshole, and for too much of the film he was doing too good a job of it, and that lost me for a while, and I actually didn't for most of the movie I'm thinking he doesn't deserve Zoe Deutsch, which is not the vibe you want from a rom-com.
He's also not that smart. I love that she talks about, well, we're going to get them together. We're going to pull a Cyrano. And he doesn't know what that word means. He doesn't know about Cyrano de Bergerac. He says, no, I thought we were pulling a parent trap.
Okay, but here's the thing, though. Here's a quote from my wife. I'm beginning to suspect that no books have been read. Because they say they're going to pull a Cyrano. That is not
That's
Cyrano.
Not what Cyrano is.
Cyrano is about helping someone date someone you're in love with. That's not pulling a Cyrano. Parent Trap is pretty close. What they're actually doing is pulling an Emma.
Yeah,
and they could have even, and if they thought that was too obscure, which by the way, it's Jane Austen, it's not. But like, if they could have said we're pulling a Clueless because these people are giving us trouble, we're going to get them to date. That's literally in there. That's the plot. You're just doing that, and that was actually weirdly frustrating.
Yeah,
just to see them like
the characters are incorrectly throwing around these literary references.
Yeah, and sometimes people make a point of that, and then it's like because there's actually like a joke in Tag that they're using this quote. People don't stop playing because they grow old. They grow old because they stop playing, and
that old chestnut.
They were incorrectly attributing it to Benjamin Franklin for most of the movie. And you're waiting there. It's like, they're going to correct that, right? And then they finally do, and you're like, oh, thank God. Oh, God, it hurts my soul.
That was the one part I liked from Alien Covenant. There's a bit where somebody misquotes something, and somebody else is called on it. I don't want to say what it is in case you ever see that movie. But.
I've been rewatching, for something I'm doing... every John Grisham movie, and I watched The Rainmaker. Some of them are really good. Some of them look great. Yeah. But I was rewatching The Rainmaker, the one Francis Ford Coppola directed with Matt Damon and Danny DeVito. If anyone doesn't remember it,
that was pretty good actually.
It's okay, but like there's this one plot point towards the end where it's like. Matt Damon tries to submit evidence in court, but the evidence had been stolen from the company, and Jon Voight says, well, you can't do that, it's stolen. And I'm watching it, I'm like, I know nothing about the law, and I know that as long as the lawyer didn't steal it, it's okay. And you have to wait for the movie to catch up to that, and I'm just like, you're all lawyers, come on, what the fuck? So like that can be frustrating when you're like that far ahead of it. My only... I have two big critiques of this movie. One is, again, I just don't think the guy is that interesting, and I think Zoe Deutsch just deserves a better boyfriend than that guy. He does evolve over the course of the film, and I like the actor fine. I just think, he just goes too far at the beginning and doesn't come back far enough at the end. But honestly, the whole world of the abusive boss is a stinky world. And it's not a fun world to visit. And here's another quote from my wife, actually, which was, they put an onion in my milkshake. Like, I want to enjoy this frothy comedy. And I kept imagining this exact same plot in a 1950s movie starring Rock Hudson and Doris Day and how great it would have been. And here
Sidney
it's like
Greenstreet is one of the bosses.
Yeah, that could have been really fun. And instead,
Stanwyck is the other boss.
Perfect. But... I don't know, Stanwyck and Greenstreet, that's a weird romantic pairing.
No, as the bosses. Oh, I guess they would get together.
That's a weird romantic pairing.
Well, why not?
Anyway, whatever.
Sidney Greenstreet and anybody, really, though. Oh, he's kind of
Sidney Greenstreet and Peter Lorre, they were going to get them together, it's going to be But, no, it's just, there's enough, like, sort of realism in the way that these people treat their underlings at these jobs, and if you've ever worked in an office, you've seen it happen, that it's just not cute for too much of it. And I thought it just sort of made the tone a little off.
I thought they took the curse off it really well, though, because Zoe Deutsch, although she resents that her boss is working her really hard, she still really admires Lucy Liu. And Lucy Liu is depicted as being very, savvy and very talented. She's not just cruel.
But then we have the
not like in The Devil Wears Prada where she's just Satan.
And even in Devil Wears Prada, she's a well-rounded character. But on the Taye Diggs side, he is just a monster. Yeah. And the dude tries to like take an afternoon off to sleep with his Baxter girlfriend. And by the way, if you don't know what we're talking about, the Baxter is a term for the character in a romantic comedy who is dating one of the characters, but who they're not supposed to end up with. Yeah, they're usually not evil. They're just not great fits, and so they're just, you know, that they're going to break up with them eventually over the course of the film.
In terms of plot, they are only written in to be dumped.
Yeah, basically the best version of this character ever in any movie, as far as I'm concerned, is Bill Pullman in Sleepless in Seattle, because he's great. He's a great, interesting, well-written, like nice character, but you can just tell that they should not be married.
Yeah,
they would be a bad marriage.
And how annoying! He has allergies. Like that's his big sin.
Yeah, it's
like they can never get in the mood because they have to take care of his allergies. Like, that's not a big deal.
And he's so charming.
Yeah,
he's so funny. He's great.
I still repeat his joke.
Dom DeLuise.
The Dom DeLuise. I'd like a bottle of Dom DeLuise, please. And the waiter doesn't get it. It's a funny scene.
Sleepless in Seattle's fun. But so that's it. But what I like most about this movie, besides Zoe Deutsch, who is of course amazing, there's a bunch of little moments where you just see like this movie get a little bit more thought, like a little bit more surprising and interesting. My favorite gag is there's a moment where Glenn Powell's character says, "Oh, we have to do something. We have to stop this thing." And it's like, "Get me a cab. I only have 4 hours."
Yeah, that was a good moment. Yeah.
And then we just cut to him like getting a sandwich, and he looks at his watch again. I overshot it.
I frittered away 4 hours. Oh no!
That's a really funny joke. Yeah. But there's this one really weird bit that I'm glad I noticed. They're at an engagement party for one of Zoe Deutsch's friends, and Zoe Deutsch is a little drunk, and she's talking to her best friend, and in the background of that scene. Glenn Powell and the guy Zoe Deutsch's friend is engaged to, who, as near as I can tell, have never met and have never had a scene together, have a weird moment where they do like a secret handshake and like smack each other's butts and stuff. And you're just like, what are we missing? Something's going on back there. And then like the only line of dialogue they trade is like, "Okay, I'll miss you." Yeah. It's actually really funny.
Well, she's just such a gregarious person. Like she goes to Glenn Powell's apartment and he has a roommate, and the roommate loves to dish on Glenn Powell.
Yeah.
So they've never met before, but they both have a line where they like dish on Glenn Powell, and they're just instantly friends. Yeah. And they spend the entire party together. Yeah. Just sort of hanging out and talking, and it's great. It's great.
That roommate has the most satisfying moment in the whole... I'm not going to ruin it for you. But by the end of the movie, his last scene in the movie is so intensely satisfying. Perfect comic timing. Yeah. Totally exactly what you want him to do at that right moment. There are moments of genuine rom-com brilliance in this. I just think they didn't quite find the tone in the middle, and I think Glenn Powell's character is maybe a little... They push him a little too far in the asshole direction.
Well, here's why I'm willing to forgive sort of the treatment of the male characters. This was written, produced, and directed by women.
Oh, I reiterate, I think that's a refreshing critique to have.
Yeah, so... In a way, we're kind of seeing the way a male... Like, I think they give a lot more to male characters in this screenplay than female characters get that are written by men.
That's quite true, often, yeah.
And, you know, that the men are depicted as sort of like cads and assholes and aspiring assholes gives us a good look at the way these male characters are viewed by a female audience. We, as men, tend to look at those characters as maybe ambitious, and male filmmakers tend to depict them as merely ambitious and kind of conflicted about their ambition, when a lot of female audiences may be looking at them as just complete assholes.
I agree.
And
I think that's great.
I think now that we have women making the film, we just get to kind of see that assholery in stark contrast.
I 100% agree with that. My thing is this. I felt like for a lot of them, that's totally great. We're still supposed to want them to end up together at the end.
I suppose
and
so.
When he's that much of, he's just like one notch over Cad for me, where it's like, oh, he can learn. Well, I'm like, I don't know if I date him by the end. Like she has a line where she's just like, you know, at the exact moment when your mettle and your ethics were tested, you failed. And she's right. And I'm not sure I would date him after that. But it's all a matter of like degrees and modulation, and I know people who are really, really digging it, and I totally get why. But for me, okay, moments of greatness, not great.
I really enjoyed it.
Okay, well, on the critically acclaimed scale of C- being the worst, C plus being the best, C being okay.
All right.
What do you give Set It Up?
I guess a high C.
Okay,
high C. I think you should check it out. But yeah, this is not going to make like top 10 lists or anything. It's just a good romantic comedy, and those seem rare these days.
Old-fashioned romantic comedies are rare, and like ones that kind of fit the formula. And there's a reason why we have a formula for them. Formula works, and
but we haven't seen the formula done well in a while, and this one actually nails it.
We're lucky if we get one or two a year, and this is okay. Yeah, I'm going to give it a C as well, middle C, but like it's good. Let's see, Superfly.
Superfly also like just a C.
Okay,
efficient, could be better, but I enjoyed large portions of it.
Tag. See, it's kind of on a middle, like when it finds the right tone and when it settles into it for like a couple of scenes in a row, you start seeing how good this movie could have been. But it's never a bad movie. It just occasionally overplays its hand and gets too dark or too dour for its own good. And we're like, oh, we're gonna make you cry. No, you won't. And then lastly, Incredibles 2.
Incredibles C plus.
Okay,
it's really quite good. With an asterisk because I have complaints about the thematic things, but that's something we can discuss.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily kill it; just needs to be talked about.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Well, let's move on to our big double feature of the week.
Oh boy!
So. Every week, as you well know, we review a notoriously bad or disappointing or box office dud of a movie.
That you chose.
That you chose. And this week, all of your options for the poll were movies with dragons because, there aren't a lot ones. There's a few.
Dragons suck.
Fuck off.
Dragons suck.
Okay,
I haven't read a story or seen a movie that like has a dragon in it that just really got me going.
Not even The Hobbit?
No,
The Hobbit's great.
The book, The Hobbit, the book.
You said Red.
Okay.
Red, The Hobbit is book.
And the Rankin Bass animated film. I like that one too.
I'm going to list off some of the better dragon movies.
Okay,
because there aren't a lot, and it should be pretty easy to get through most of them. Dragon Slayer. Pretty good.
Haven't seen Dragon Slayer.
Pretty good. Dragon is awesome. Still, I would argue the best on-screen dragon ever. The remake of Pete's Dragon. I love that movie.
Right.
I love that movie. That movie tugs right at the heartstrings. I think the movie is really great. The original Pete's Dragon is okay too, but I think the
remake of Pete's Dragon would have been better without the dragon. Like if it was just a story about a kid like living with a family, it would have been a lot better.
I think it would have been better if they maybe hadn't ever confirmed the dragon was real. But whatever, we can talk about that. The Rankin Bass The Hobbit. The Rankin Bass animated film Flight of Dragons.
Also haven't seen that
Which is a lot of fun, and it's really nerdy about dragons, too. Like, here's how it works. Here's how they make fire. Like, they enjoy it. No, they enjoy it. They have fun. It's really cool. Dragonheart's okay.
Dragonheart is passable.
The How to Train Your Dragon movies
The special effects have dated horribly in Dragonheart.
At the time, they were very much ahead of the curve.
They were on the curve. How to Train Your Dragon 2 is especially good.
I think both How to Train Your Dragon movies are good, but yeah, How to Train Your Dragon 2 is really very, very effective.
There's nothing about...
Willow has a cool dragon in it. Ebersisk.
Oh yeah, that's named after Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah, that's a cool dragon. And one of the other villains in that movie is named after Pauline Kael.
Oh, that's really funny.
General Kael! Someone had a problem with critics.
Get back to me so I can get Rex Reed out of my hair.
Yeah, I'm probably forgetting one or two, but like those are probably the most prominent good dragon movies. Because the thing with dragons is that they're complicated visual effects. And for many, many years, it was difficult to make them look cool.
Ray Harryhausen did it well.
Yeah, like all those cool monsters in the Ray Harryhausen movies. But yeah, there aren't a lot of great dragon movies, but there's a lot of bad ones. So our options were Dungeons & Dragons starring Jeremy Irons, which is really entertainingly bad. D-Wars. AKA Dragon Wars. It was released under both titles.
It was released under both simultaneously. I think it was D-War : Dragon Wars.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Which is this also quite entertainingly awful big budget Korean thing with like a lot of like sort of I recognize that actor, American actors in it.
I think Robert Forster is in there.
Yeah, he's like one of the bigger names in it, which is like Robert Forster. Like you can get Robert Forster, but he will add a little class. But that one was kind of fun. But instead, you went for Eragon.
based on the young adult novel written by a young adult.
Actually, originally written by a 15-year-old.
Yeah, Christopher Paolini. I think his parents were publishers, and he put together this fantasy book, which was very inspired by Ursula K. Le Guin and
Star Wars.
Definitely Star Wars.
Hugely rose on Star Wars.
It's super derivative. I'm not going to come down on him for writing.
Well, we're only going off of the movie. We haven't read the book.
Yeah.
Oh, and indeed, it's a series of books, and the books have fans. And indeed, when we mentioned that we were reviewing this, we had some people like, yeah, the book's better. Also, some people said the book is trash. But, I don't know. I haven't read it. All I got to go on is the movie. And when you're dealing with a lot of these young adult adaptations, that's something you actually run into a lot, because you're banking on this pre-established fan base.
Thanks, Harry Potter.
Well, here's what happens. You've got a series of books. First off, I'm glad people are reading. But, the books are popular? Okay, let's make a movie. That's how it works. Almost any popular book, someone buys the movie rights. That's what happens. But this is a big, epic fantasy thing. Well, shit, maybe we can get a franchise out of that. It's a big franchise of books, so we're going to make a movie. Hopefully it'll be great. Problem is that if you don't make a movie that will appeal to people who haven't read the books, no one gives a shit, because most people I don't care how popular a book is, most people on the planet haven't read it. So you need to make a movie that people who haven't read the book will go, interesting. And some movies get that right. Hunger Games is a great concept. It's a bit derivative, but it's a great concept. Harry Potter, great world. Looks like a place you want to visit. Why wouldn't I go see that movie? Eragon? He's got a dragon.
This was a big budget film, but I kind of appreciated how cheap it looked when you compared it to, like Harry Potter's and Lords of the Rings and what have you. Because it reminded me kind of, it was like a Ren Fair come to life in a lot of ways. Like the costumes looked like they were made of real cloth, like maybe the actors themselves had made them.
Okay,
you think, in a world where you're living in huts and you're out in the woods and it's medieval times, you probably would wear clothes that looked a little bit more like that.
We need to talk about a controversial tweet you made.
What was my tweet?
You argued that the production design in Eragon was better than the production design in The Lord of the Rings.
Yes. And I stand by that statement.
I think that needs context.
Okay, well...
I disagree, but I think at the very least it needs context.
I have never liked the design in Lord of the Rings. I think it looks like a Celtic tattoo threw up. I appreciate that they filmed it in real locations, but then they supplemented it with so much special effects that it looks fake anyway. I think, especially with the first Lord of the Rings, he wasn't quite graceful enough with a lot of the digital effects he wanted, so a lot of it looks a little wonky. Like the forced perspective stuff was really off.
I can see that.
But he was clearly taking a lot of his design cues from a whole generation of book covers, like fantasy book covers and posters and like D&D games and monster manuals. And that is an aesthetic I've always just sort of hated.
Why?
Because it's misty and ugly and just not fun to look at. It looks like there's a lot of moss and filth, and it's not a world I want to be in.
Okay, well, I'm gonna fight you on that, because I like that aesthetic, and we can just call that subjective all you want.
Perhaps.
But he made a choice, and instead of making something that felt very
real,
grounded,
and
which is like the other movie we're going to be talking about, he made a movie that is fantasy. And when you're making a fantasy movie, you get to decide just how fantastical you want to get. Does it have any connection to reality, or is it just completely nuts?
Well, when you're dealing with high fantasy, the world of wizards and dragons, you can't even pretend that it's realistic at all.
But you're arguing that by having things that feel more realistic and lived in, Eragon's production design is better. You just made an argument for why Lord of the Rings production design is good. At least that's the idea they had. And they had a consistent design aesthetic, and I think it's a very attractive design aesthetic. I think, all things created equal, some sets and looks are better than others. But I think they created an incredibly vivid and gorgeous world in there. And I think the problem with the production design, the costume design in Eragon, which is fine, but it doesn't make any sort of impression. And the other movie we're going to be talking about, even though it's way more grounded even than Eragon, it does. It feels like it has a style, feels like it's purpose. This feels really generic.
Let me also underline this by saying that I'm not impressed by the production design in Eragon. I was just using that to underline how much I hate the production design in Lord of the Rings.
Got it.
I think Eragon is blandy bland. We
were commiserating just before we started doing this podcast that we watched Eragon a couple of days ago.
Like 3 or 4 days ago.
Tops.
And a lot of it is already gone from my mind.
It's generic is the best way to describe this movie. It's not incompetent. There's nothing about it that's really bad, which I say with big air quotes, even though no one can see me. It's just nothing. And it's something that I think I've heard other critics talk about that is just sort of almost unforgivable if you think about it. You have fantasy. You can make anything up you want. And you made something generic? That's almost worse than being bad. Like, I would rather watch D-Wars or the Dungeons & Dragons movie again and again and again than watch Eragon again and again, because I'm not going to get anything more out of it. At least the badness of those movies is interesting.
I've seen all 3 of these movies. This is the best of the 3.
This is the most competent of
it's the most competent.
I don't think that's the same as best.
Better characters, better story. It's not a pain in the ass to watch.
Oh, I enjoyed watching D-Wars and Dungeons and Dragons. I think those movies are fun. They're not good.
They're awful.
But they're fun.
No, they're not.
They're
fun.
Entertaining.
Jeremy Irons is having a great time because he's just drunk and seeing what he can get away with in that movie.
In Dungeons and Dragons.
In
Eragon, he's collecting a paycheck.
He's
giving exposition and then he dies.
He knows what he has to do. Yeah, he knows what he's got to do in this movie. The story is I don't remember.
No, the story is
there's a young hero. He runs into a fleeing woman. He
doesn't run into her. You're already remembering this.
Okay,
here's
what happens?
Here's what's happening.
All right.
They get a brief prologue talking about how there used to be this race of dragon riders, but then one dragon rider betrayed everybody. Now he's John Malkovich, and he spends the entire movie in one room sitting down. Like he's like Ben Kingsley in Blood Rain. Like he could not be fucking bothered.
Or Peter O'Toole in Stardust. He doesn't even get out of bed in that movie.
I kept thinking that fucking that John Malkovich, like there was going to be some sort of joke, and we find out that this giant throne he was on was actually a toilet. Like this was actually just his toilet room, and there's a reason why he's all sequestered and alone in there.
There's a stinger at the end, like what's behind the throne.
I know, but it's not a big deal. Anyway, so this young woman is a rebel. She is running away from Darth Vader with the Death Star plans. Darth Vader is played by
Robert Carlyle.
Thank you, Robert Carlyle,
an evil wizard.
Yeah, John Malkovich is the Emperor. Robert Carlyle is Darth Vader. He's the evil wizard who's after everybody. He's the one who's going to kill Obi-Wan. Sorry, Jeremy Irons is
Obi-Wan.
Yeah, the young lady manages to get the Death Star plans. I'm sorry, the dragon egg.
The dragon egg, which is a gigantic blue suppository. It looks like a suppository.
And then she gets herself captured, and then the young blonde farm boy whose family is about to be killed by the Empire, and find out he's chosen to be part of the
Dragon Rider
protectors with magic powers. We did not pick Star Wars for this because it was too fucking obvious. This is bullet point for bullet point Star Wars, but in actual fantasy land.
The only difference is that instead of the Force, we have a character. We have a dragon.
Yeah.
And who is voiced by Rachel Weisz.
I like to think that's what midichlorians looked like if you looked down under a microscope.
They just look like
little dragons.
Little lizards.
Little dragons. She's voiced by Rachel Weisz, who really, she's a wonderful actor. She has nothing to work with. She doesn't really bring anything to it. It's unfortunate.
Well, and like the dragon egg hatches, it grows to full size like pretty quickly, and it speaks English. Like I guess it's telepathy, but it speaks English to all the
after
characters.
Like a day or two.
Yeah,
this is the thing that I think Eragon is missing more than anything else. When you're thinking about a fantasy world, you're creating new places, new characters, new. Hold on.
Okay, I have something to say on this.
Here's what I'm going to say.
Right.
It should be a place you want to visit. It should be a place you want to go to. There should be something about it like, ooh, neat.
Just attractive to look at the very least.
Yeah, and what the key thing with Eragon here, really, story about a boy and his dragon. And we don't really get to enjoy that at all. You know, they have like one scene where they're hanging out, but they don't form a real bond. They don't like really get to play. Like when you think about How to Train Your Dragon, so much of that is about actually training a dragon that you get to really build a relationship with them. He doesn't get to build a relationship with the dragon. The plot has to move on so quickly. The fun of this is, I want a dragon. I want to be a dragon rider. Like, that should be the thing you want from this. You want to, like, ooh, how cool is this? And instead, you just got to push forward with the plot, and you never get to enjoy the moments. That's the thing for me with Eragon. The moments never feel important.
Yeah, it's true. The pacing is a little too swift. You say that when it comes to making like high fantasy like this, that you're making a fantastical world, and you get to make the world that you live in. But I feel like this particular brand of high fantasy is maybe one of the dullest, least creative worlds to visit in movies, which is why there haven't been a lot of good movies with dragons in them, because there's so few resources to tap into. You go to Gygax, you go to Tolkien, and that's kind of the end of the road for fantasy. You know, there's
that's not true. That's where most people stop looking.
Well, there are, of course, great vistas, but when you're dealing with a fantasy version of essentially medieval England, and you have knights errant, you have the usual races of elves and dwarves and halflings and wizards, you have the usual creatures of dragons and beholders.
I don't think most
really,
things have beholders.
Really, well, maybe not, but it feels like
it's like that and Big Trouble in Little China. The only two things I can think of have a beholder.
The world of high fantasy, the world of dragons and the Dragonlance Chronicles and all the rest of that garbage is so walled in so tightly that there's really not a lot you can do within those parameters. I always resented that science fiction and fantasy were always kept in the same aisle at the bookstore, because in my mind they were completely different.
For a lot of them they are.
Now I understand, like when you're looking at something like Star Wars, that's a little bit of both.
Well, I was having this conversation lately, like, people were like, genre, like does it adhere to a genre? I'm like, it doesn't have to be only one genre.
It doesn't have
genre is basically markers, and if you hit all these markers, you're in that genre. You hit some of those markers in that genre, and you can hit markers for multiple. It's why we have comedic dramas, and we call them dramedies. They're funny movies that have real feelings in them. You can have a comedy movie that has horror stuff in it. So it's a comedy horror.
There are things that are science fiction and fantasy. In fact, there are quite a few stories, especially since Star Wars.
But at their baseline, they are incredibly different.
Yeah, one is like sort of speculative fiction. It's about how does humanity react to evolving technology, which is a very modern problem, and that's what really good science fiction stories are going to deal with: the way the politics, the way humanity evolves in the future, and you can they serve as sort of like cautionary tales or tales of hopefulness, and they're actually much more applicable to real life. High fantasy is a way of sanitizing history and trying to...
That's a cynical way of looking at it.
Call me a cynic then, because I think they're trying to inject a type of magical ease of consumption into something that was perhaps not that glamorous.
See, I think that's something that some fantasy stories do. I think you can definitely argue that with something like I don't think they're sanitizing it, but they're certainly looking at Game of Thrones is looking at the War of the Roses through a lens, for example. But I think when you look at it, like, you can look at the fantasy genre as looking back at a tradition of grand storytelling, everything from Beowulf to King Arthur to the Greek gods. These are stories that we used to tell, and they were sort of allegorical in a lot of ways. In some cases, they were simply just boldly fantastical and very entertaining. And if we deny that aspect of our history, that aspect of the collective cultural imagination of pretty much every culture on the planet has something like this, I think we missed something, and I think wanting to create new stories in that tradition or reimagine stories in that tradition in new and hopefully relevant ways, I think that's a perfectly noble, perfectly interesting thing to do. There's a lot of bad ones, but there's a lot of bad ones in literally every genre.
I was referring specifically to sort of modern treatments of the old epic poems.
But even that,
because I've read Le Mort d'Arthur, and I've tried to read some of those Icelandic sagas.
Gawain and the Green Knight.
I've read Beowulf. I've read Gilgamesh. There's and there's sort of like essential human truths to those stories that I think modern fantasy has abandoned in favor of stories and mechanics and, quote, world building.
Well, again, I think...
And our B feature, actually, I think, does a really good job of tapping into those ancient traditions much better than something like Lord of the Rings. I'm not a fan. Okay. I'm the one person on the planet who's not a big fan of Lord of the Rings. But we decided to pair this up with just a really good fantasy film that I think does it right.
Are we just going to skip past Eragon that fast?
Yeah, what else do you have to say about it?
I don't
Eragon?
really... Okay.
Yeah. What did we miss?
I'm trying to think. It plays out like Star Wars. The dude Mar who stars in it is very interesting.
He gets on a dragon. He has a battle with the Darth Vader character. There's a big twist at the end that there's another dragon. That's kind of it. Yeah, what else?
Moving on. Okay.
Yeah, what else can you remember about this movie?
I wish we had more to say, but like sometimes when you're a film critic, mediocrity can be way more frustrating than bad. There's a reason why we don't ask you for the most mediocre movies. It turned out this way. I'd never seen Eragon. Maybe it was really interesting. Hell, maybe it was great. Sometimes I do like the movies that get voted on here. This is just middle of the road. You can totally see why. You can see why it got made. You can also see why it didn't become a franchise.
Well, again, we see why it got made, from like a studio perspective, but in terms of like the
idea for a movie, it might have been
immediacy
successful.
of its tale is not something that was necessarily needed to be told.
Look, you're gonna hit Star Wars beat for beat. Fine, a lot of movies hit Jaws beat for beat, and they were successful movies. So why not Star Wars but Dragon? Like why not?
Because
it worked.
We had that already. It was called Willow, which is also Star Wars beat for beat if you think about it.
Kinda. Okay, fine. Moving on.
It has a Luke Skywalker character, has a Darth Vader character, has an Emperor character.
I think it's
a Han Solo character played by Val Kilmer.
I think Willow is more interesting than Eragon by far, but okay.
And see, Willow is
I like Willow a lot.
I like Willow a lot too, and Willow is one that was able to like use its design and make things feel kind of muddy and lived in, and it felt like a real sort of unique, interesting world that was good to look at.
All right. So before we move on to our double feature, as always, we ask you, see if anyone can predict. What are we gonna do? And we had a lot of predictions. I don't think anyone got it right, near as I can tell. Let me just double check, see if let me update it. Just because I forgot to do it earlier, so I ended up just going up today. No, I don't think anyone did. Okay, so some of the suggestions that we had: Dragonheart, okay,
of course.
Star Wars: A New Hope. Definitely. Yeah, we already talked about it a little bit. Kevin Marino suggested Zardoz, which actually would have been really fun.
That's a crazy one, but all right.
Super crazy. We got, let's see what we got here. Stardust. A lot of people really like Stardust. Ken Lott suggested Stardust. A couple of suggestions for Lord of the Rings, How to Train Your Dragon, Dragonheart. David Morris suggested Men in Black. I don't get it.
Men in Black.
I guess it's about a mentor-student relationship.
I guess I could see that a little bit. I can see that.
Yeah. Okay. A couple suggestions for Reign of Fire. We said good movies. I like Reign of Fire is fun. I don't know if I'd call it great. We typically go great.
I love Reign of Fire. Reign of Fire actually has a scene where, speaking of like long traditions of storytelling, this takes place like after the dragon apocalypse.
Yeah.
And people are living in caves underground, and they entertain one another by telling the tales of their people, and they reenact a scene from Empire Strikes Back.
It's really fun, actually. That movie's a little underrated. It's not great or nothing, but it's quite fun. Chris Marino suggested Shrek, which actually, it's actually not a bad one. I think Shrek is aged rather poorly because it's so dedicated to its references a lot of the time, but like the subversion of the traditional fairy tale fantasy storyline is rather clever. Let me see, anything else? Paul Oyama suggested Howl's Moving Castle. That's an interesting choice.
Howl's Moving Castle.
I can see that. It's about someone who is very normal getting swept up into a world of fantasy. It is about a much more nuanced and interesting perspective on war from a fantasy perspective. That could have been really interesting, actually. I kind of like that. Marion Lombardi also suggested Enchanted, which I love Enchanted. Enchanted's a delight. Jamie Lee Botanic, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, suggested The Black Stallion, which,
Oh, yeah. Befriending the creature, yeah.
That's a really good idea. I almost wish I'd thought of that. A couple people suggested Excalibur, which is something we definitely considered. Some people suggested The Hobbit, definitely considered. Ben Brusella suggested The Court Jester with Danny Kaye. Great pick.
That was a good suggestion.
If you haven't seen The Court Jester,
we should have done The Court Jester.
That was really funny. I love that movie.
Oh, now I regret not picking it.
A lot of people said that you need to see Dragon Slayer. First Night, which interesting choice.
Have you seen First Night with Richard Gere, Sir Lancelot?
It's a really dramatic shift in Arthurian lore, but it's actually a well-made movie.
Yeah,
like if you can get past all the weird changes that they made to the legends, like it's
and that was with, like Jerry Zucker, it's like a comedy director put that together. It's actually really pretty well put together.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail was also suggested. That would have been pretty great. Excalibur again, one of my favorites.
I feel like Holy Grail has been discussed. Like we unless there was like some really strong connective tissue that we can really put those two together, then
like if we were doing like Guy Ritchie's King Arthur movie,
then we could do Holy Grail.
But instead we went with
Guy Ritchie's. Did you see King Arthur: Legend of the Sword?
Yeah, I did, and it got. Here's the thing: its badness got built up too much.
Well, it's
watchable.
It was a bigger bomb than it was a bad movie. It's still a pretty bad movie.
I don't think I've seen a movie with more montages.
It's like 40% montage.
It's like the man with a movie camera. Like it's just like nothing but montages the entire movie. It's insane.
Did you catch David Beckham?
I did. It's weird.
Hey, pull that sword out of the stone. That's David Beckham's part.
And Jaimin Hansu basically plays the same character in that movie as he does in Eragon. Did you notice?
Oh, he does.
Isn't that weird?
Same role.
Oh, it's so weird. I didn't hate it the way a lot of other people did, but I can totally see why it was a bomb. But instead we picked one of the other best live-action fantasy movies, and no, not Sword and the Sorcerer, which I love Sword and the Sorcerer, and I just wanted to give it a quick shout-out before we moved on to Conan the Barbarian.
Conan the Barbarian.
The original Conan the Barbarian. Not the Jason Momoa version.
From the 80s, not the 2011 version.
I'm just going to say one thing about that remake, or it's a loose remake. Rose McGowan is giving that movie everything. Rose McGowan is great in that movie. Rose McGowan is having so much fun in that film. She makes it worth seeing. Is it good? No. But Rose McGowan is, and I just want to say that.
The original Conan the Barbarian, however, is good. And this is one that I came to late in life. This is one I didn't see until I was in my 30s. I know a lot of my peers grew up watching Conan the Barbarian. How did you guys get a hold of Conan the Barbarian when you were children? This movie is shockingly adult.
There was an edited version for television, which was still kept most of it. The nudity wasn't in there. And there's not even that much nudity, really.
There's one pretty notable sex scene, though.
There's some nudity. And a lot of the violence was the sort of stuff they could edit around a little bit for television. It's better in its R-rated version, obviously. But yeah, I saw it on TV a lot. And Conan the Barbarian was...
Walk us through Conan.
Okay, so it's based off of stories written by Robert E. Howard, who created this fantasy land which took place in sort of this nebulous time in ancient history.
It's the Dark Ages.
It's the Dark Ages, but when exactly, where exactly, hazy.
We didn't know it was the Dark Ages.
Fair enough. But my point is that it's supposed to be the past, but everything else is up for grabs.
Post the fall of Rome, pre any other kind of...
The Iron Age, whatever, but yeah. And it's the story of a barbarian who is basically just chiseled out of macho. He is muscly, he has long, sexy hair.
He has a tragic backstory.
Giant swords, kills a lot of people, has a lot of sex, is ostensibly the good guy, but is not really good.
He's a big penis. Just a big penis with holds another penis sword.
Yeah, and they are just forthrightly laced in this sort of fantasy of macho. I was watching, I think I mentioned it recently as well, this documentary series on Netflix called The Toys That Made Us, and they were talking about He-Man. We need to come up with an action figure series. What do boys want? And they realized that what young boys want is to be powerful. They're young and they're weak and they can't control anything in their lives, so they want to be a He-Man. And that's Conan. Conan is a He-Man. Conan is just in control and can fight anybody and could lift boulders if he had to. And
I feel like, though, that even though it's giving us this kind of almost straightforward version of male machismo. I feel like the director is kind of winking a little bit.
Well, and I think
because he's playing it over the top in a way that feels vaguely satirical.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why the movie works so well. And there's a ton of Conan stories. Some are better than others. The character has been picked up and made into comic books and other stories and other movies. And, not all the stories are created equal. But at its heart, it's a very fantastical, wish fulfillment, macho kind of fantasy. John Milius directed and co-wrote with Oliver Stone, before Oliver Stone was Oliver Stone, this rather big, not epically budgeted by modern standards or even standards at the time, but pretty big motion picture adaptation of Conan the Barbarian, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, who had done a little acting by this point, but was not a star. This was his big. It was not his first starring role. That would be Hercules in New York, another movie which we'll probably get to at some point. But this was his big breakout role. This is a role that was probably like Robert E. Howard foresaw the birth of Arnold Schwarzenegger and started writing stories starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, that's how perfect he is for this part. It opens with a quote from Friedrich Nietzsche. That which does not kill us make us stronger, and then it proceeds to have a montage in the credits of Conan's father building a sword, and the story is about Conan's parents are killed by the villainous Thulsa Doom, played by James Earl Jones. Conan becomes a slave and then a gladiator, and then sets out on his own to become a thief and then eventually destroy Thulsa Doom. That's the basic storyline. But what we're really looking at is a movie about steel. This is a movie about the forging of a man. He will be forged over the course of this and become who he becomes.
There's a lot of like fire imagery and like molten metal imagery, and just the way the camera luxuriates in Arnold Schwarzenegger's body.
And not even in a sexual way, just in a wow, look at that.
In a really admirable sort of way. Conan, I don't think is sexualized. Like, he's certainly sexual, and there's that really sexy sex scene he has with the witch, but
and Sandal Bergman,
but he gets around, and we're meant to sort of admire his machismo. But I think that we're sort of holding him up less as a sexual ideal and more as just a human ideal of athleticism.
Well, I think
which is kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger's selling point for many years.
Yeah, he was well known as a bodybuilder, but I think that Nietzsche quote unlocks a lot of that, which is that which doesn't kill us make us stronger. We're about to see idealized humanity, and Conan over the course of the story, again, he has everything taken away from him. He builds himself up from his bootstraps, and he. Over time, Thulsa Doom, we see, was originally just this roving barbarian who killed everybody. But somewhere in the interim, between when Conan was like 8 and now that he's like 30, Thulsa Doom has remade himself as a cult leader. And he sees now that the ability to control people's minds is the real power in the world. And Conan cannot be controlled. And ultimately, that is the thing that makes Conan great in the eyes, I think, of Conan the Barbarian. It is about that sort of the power to control your own destiny. And
so it's very American in a weird way.
It is. And I think that's interesting that, Arnold Schwarzenegger was perceived throughout a lot of the 80s and 90s as this sort of quintessential American ideal, which is ironic because he's not originally American. He became a citizen. He became governor of California. And, good for him. But, he's not, American. So it's just interesting that he became this sort of idealized, wow, look what we could be. We should work out. But I'm not gonna. I'm gonna eat these Cheetos, and watch Arnold Schwarzenegger movies.
You can eat those Cheetos. You just have to eat also 30 pounds of whey powder and 4 bowls of oatmeal, and then lift a truck.
What Conan the Barbarian has that Eragon does not. Well, okay, there's a lot. For one thing, it has one of the greatest scores ever written for a movie.
Basil Polidorus writes some pretty awesome music for this thing.
Every scene feels epic, but that's it. Every scene, every moment in this feels like a big deal.
Yeah.
Eragon feels like they're just kind of briskly moving through the paces. Conan, even if you can say his parents die at the beginning, like so many heroes, it feels huge. There's the huge epic swell of the Basil Polidorus score as like the hordes come through the forest. There's that great moment where everything stops and Thulsa Doom hypnotizes Conan's mom so he can behead her.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, holy shit. Oh my God. Everything is just huge, and it feels like you're really transported to a place where shit matters.
We were talking about sort of the literary origins of this type of fantasy story, and if you read some of those old stories, they're called epics for a reason. They really sort of take the time to play with big emotions in a big way. Everything is very, very important, and they were also told in this sort of to cash in a little literary word you remember from college. They were very picaresque in that they're episodic. They take each little tiny story as kind of like a complete story unto itself.
Yeah.
And they're going to really mine that for the giganticness of these characters. I feel like a lot of more modern fantasy stories, in trying to streamline it, are missing something really, really important. You look at something like Eragon, it has none of that. There's not a sense of this hero coming to be. There's not a sense of him feeling big emotions. He's more like a regular guy. They're trying to make modern audiences relate to him a little bit more closely, so they're making him really modern.
Well, I mean,
and you're missing out on all this.
He smokes pot and does goofy shit. Like, he's like a normal dude. He gets a lot of money off of this huge heist he does, and he just spends the entire time drinking. He's just a dude.
He goes into this hut with this hot woman. Is like, hey, you want to sleep with me? Yeah, sure. But I'm an evil witch. Yeah, but so
we're still gonna have sex,
do we still get to do it?
There's this weird moment where like I was rewatching it and I realized, other than when he's having sex with the witch at the beginning of the movie, like they're having sex and then he like gets this weird monster face and he throws her into the fire, and I'm like, we don't know that she's evil.
Maybe he just hallucinated in that moment.
It isn't until he wakes up in the morning and leaves that we find out that like she had kidnapped some other guy for food, and so she was evil, like so good. But like Conan didn't know that. Conan's just a judgmental asshole. But we meet Subutai, who is a really, really fun character. He's played by a guy. Oh God, what's his name? Jerry Lopez. Jerry Lopez was a surfer. Yeah, just got a great vibe. Just really chill. I really love him. So he teams up with Subutai. He fights a giant snake in a snake cult. And he teams up with Sandal Bergman, who is amazing, and I'm amazed she was never a bigger star. And she's
I think she just wasn't I think she was a big star internationally, just not here.
She should have been a bigger star. She plays his love interest, Valeria. And what's interesting about Conan's relationship with Valeria is how incredibly intense and believable and important they are to each other, and they almost never talk. Someone counted, I think he has like Conan, 6 lines of dialogue to Valeria over the course of the whole movie.
Well, Conan's not a chatty guy. He doesn't. I think that he's kind of just sort of a big beefsteak of a man who doesn't really think about a lot. Kind of endears him in a weird way. In this kind of, we're more able to accept him as this vaguely satirical ideal of a masculine energy, if he's not willing to express any sort of thought.
Well, he's also made for the world in which he lives. You can do this sort of Your Highness thing where people sort of regard things and have observations. That's not Conan. Conan is living. Conan is in the moment all the time. And there's something kind of admirable about that. And
we're praising this for how realistic it is, and yet how epic poetry.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about Conan the Barbarian.
It really balances both of those things.
Conan the Barbarian feels epic and huge, and yet it feels real. I was talking about that before. Like even the costumes range from "Wow, I don't believe that hat at all, but it looks really cool," to "Yeah, I'd wear that." Like it's all makes a lot of sense. It has this internal logic to it. It doesn't necessarily. It's not all there to look good. It looks good, but it's not all there too. A lot of it's just really practical. Like there's a bit where Conan fights off a whole bunch of dogs. The next time you see him, he's like wearing a bunch of dog furs. They don't look sexy. He's not a clothing designer. He's just draped it over. Yeah, it's badass because we know he fought off a bunch of dogs that were trying to kill him. Like we don't see it happen. So, but so that's all really, really cool. Mako is in this. Now Mako has maybe the greatest voice in history. I'm not gonna do him injustice, whatever.
Injustice.
I'm not gonna do him any injustice by doing his voice. Mako narrates the film. Mako would go on to did he win an Oscar for Sand Pebbles, or was he just nominated?
I think he won. No, I think he was just nominated.
He's an award-winning actor. He was star of the stage. He went on to become the voice of Uncle Iroh in Avatar: The Last Airbender, a character who makes me cry. He's so well done.
He played Aku, the evil shape-shifting wizard, in Samurai Jack.
Yes, he did. He is a god, and he plays a wizard in this film and the sequel, Conan the Destroyer. And when Mako talks, you listen. You listen to every fucking word he says, and it is gospel. He is awesome. He's just cool.
Centuries ago.
Don't do it. No. But again, what we end up talking about here is, unlike Eragon, Conan has themes.
It's actually about something.
Conan is about real shit. Eragon is ostensibly about good conquering evil or whatever, but Conan is about maturity. It's about individualism. It's about standing tall against people who are conforming. And the last act / half of the movie is Conan versus a snake cult. People who will do anything for someone who has told them that they are a god. There is a cannibal orgy.
Oh, yeah.
And it is amazing.
The best ever filmed. Second best after Society, but...
Okay, yeah. You know what? Yes.
Society is the best.
I thought you were joking, but I was like, oh, yeah, no, there is a better one. You're right.
Yeah, there's one better one.
It's really good. It's very special. When Conan finally gets to talk to somebody, and it's James Earl Jones, and James Earl Jones has thoughts about things, and he has lines of dialogue about how I made you more than your father. The person you are now is because of me. And then Conan's just like, fuck off, chop. Just like, yay! It's like the end of RoboCop. Yay!
Just shoot. You're fired. Thank you. Blam, 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 blam. Such a great movie. But I keep on saying that it's vaguely satirical, and I think because Conan's such a dimwit, we applaud sort of his actions, and we admire sort of how idealized he is, but we understand that we maybe shouldn't love him. That he's a lout. He's kind of a dummy. He's a violent man. And again, we can admire him from sort of a poetic perspective, but at the same time, we can kind of recognize that in order to survive and in order to be a hero, that you kind of have to be a violent asshole, more or less.
Yeah.
And it's inviting us to admire our own vision of of our own masculine ideals and what heroism is to us. Heroism does not celebrate intellect, doesn't have a lot of thought to it, and kind of requires that you be, as callow as you can.
There's a great line from King Osric in this movie. King Osric is played by the amazing Max von Sydow.
Von Sydow.
Whatever. Yeah. I apologize if I got that wrong. But he has brought Conan and Valeria and Subutai ostensibly to kill them, is what it looks like, but in actuality he wants them to rescue his daughter from the snake cult. And he talks about the shit that they've been pulling. And he has this great speech that ends with, "What daring! What outrageousness! What insolence! What arrogance! I salute you." And that's kind of the whole...
Yeah.
That's kind of just explains why Conan is the way Conan is. Any other time in history, Conan probably would not be as great as he is. He'd be like the third thug, like behind the bad guy, but here he's the good guy. He is everything we need at this exact point in history when everything was just blood and sweat.
A lot of mud. There's a lot of mud in this movie.
I want to talk about the camel scene.
The camel scene?
The camel scene always bugs me. It has nothing to do with this movie. It has everything to do with Conan the Destroyer.
Okay, Conan the Destroyer is a pretty darn decent sequel.
I know, everyone hates Conan the Destroyer. It's fine.
It's really, really fun.
It's a very entertaining movie. I like that movie a lot.
Yeah, you got Grace Jones and that weird horn monster and the Hall of Mirrors. And
it's neat.
Yeah.
I like that movie. That movie's cool. But it's not as good as Conan the Barbarian.
I think Richard Fleischer, the director of Conan the Destroyer, needs to have his own retrospective because he made a lot of great genre movies.
He made some crap too, but he's had a varied career. But Conan the Destroyer is a lot of fun, but there's a weird bit in it that pisses me off. It has to do with this camel. So, in Conan the Barbarian...
God damn you, camel.
When else am I going to get a chance to talk about this? Conan the Barbarian. There's a scene where Conan and Superfly, they get high. And they're just stumbling down the street like college students at 2 a.m. walking back to their studio apartment that they share. And they're a little, they're wasted. It's like, can you believe that? And then Conan punches out a camel for basically no reason. And you feel really bad for that camel. And then in the sequel, Conan the Destroyer, Conan and his sidekick, not Subutai, new guy, different dude. They go into a new city, and that different sidekick says to Conan, hey, remember him? And then Conan looks at the camel and is like, I think I do. Hey, sorry about last time. And then the camel spits on him, and Conan punches the camel out again.
It's a cute little callback.
It's a cute little callback. That other dude wasn't there, and he's not playing Subutai. You can't do that.
It's a bad continuity error.
It's a bad continuity. It's really bad. It has always bothered me, even when I was a kid. That dude doesn't know that camel.
It's used in the service of cute joke, though.
It's a cute joke.
It's a cute joke.
It's a cute joke that makes no sense now.
Well, of course not. How much makes sense in these movies? Especially Conan the Destroyer. Even less makes sense in that movie. The first one feels sort of epic and grounded and muddy, and I think that's why people don't like Conan the Destroyer, which is much broader and cartoonier.
It's the PG-13 version of it, but it's a good PG-13 version of it. It's a really entertaining matinee monster barbarian movie, and I like it a lot. And I think if you've never seen Conan the Barbarian, the original Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger, stop the podcast.
You can go see it.
Go watch it. It's great. If you've never seen Conan the Destroyer, be aware it's not going to be as intense or as fucking badass as Conan the Barbarian, but it's a fun sequel. If you remember Conan the Destroyer sucking and you haven't seen it in a long ass time, try rewatching it. I think you might have a good time. And the Jason Momoa one kind of sucks, except for Rose McGowan.
And you can also skip Red Sonja.
I have mixed feelings about Red Sonja. There's stuff I like in Red Sonja.
There's things to admire about Red Sonja, but it's kind of a dull
Bergman comes
film.
back in Red Sonja, different character. She's great. There's some fun action sequences in it. Red Sonja is not a complete wash. It's kind of dumb, though.
At the New Beverly, we occasionally would have all-nighters. And we wouldn't announce the lineup. You pay your money and you get what movies we give you. And when it was the horror all-nighters, usually they would announce ahead of time because we would show obscure things. But we had an Arnold Schwarzenegger all-nighter. And people weren't really sure what we were going to show. And
they showed Red Sonja.
and there's one, and it starts up with this really fantastic opening. It's fantasy world. It is the Dark Ages. And it's it's going to be Conan. And there was this one warrioress named Red Sonja. And I was in the booth. And I could even hear through the soundproof wall, oh... You get to see people get up and leave the theater. I don't want to see Red Sonja. I'm not going to stay up all night to watch Red Sonja.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. That was our double feature. Next week, all of the options on the Schmoeville poll are musicians' vanity projects.
Yay! And there are a lot to choose from.
Oh, we had trouble narrowing it down.
A lot of bad ones.
We narrowed it down to Cool as Ice, starring Vanilla Ice as Cool as Ice. I think that's his name. That movie's insane. We have Glitter, starring Mariah Carey as Glitter. I don't know. I haven't seen it. And we have From Justin to Kelly, which is basically a beach movie starring the first winners and runner-up of American Idol. All of films have really bad reputations. I've seen one of them. It's pretty special.
I've seen two of them.
Okay.
They're wow. Both of those are bad.
But in the meantime, we're going to answer some letters now. If you want to email us, guess what? You can. Letters at criticallyacclaimed.net. You can email us, and we will potentially read your email on the air. We'll answer your questions, give you movie recommendations, respond to your comments or critiques of our critiques, anything at all, really. So what do we got, Winnie?
This one comes from English Colin. He's signing off as English Colin. Dear Bibbs and main course of awesomeness. Oh, thank you. I guess that's me. In the latest, although comically outdated by the time this gets read, episode, a couple of things came up that set my British sensitivities aflutter.
Oh dear.
This was when we reviewed Beast. Firstly, the film
Wasn't
Beast.
that long ago.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to attend a Q&A with the director of Beast, Michael Pearce, for the film, and he has a specific explanation for why the film is called Beast. There was a serial killer in the 1960s in Jersey, which is actually significantly closer to France than it is to Britain, who was known as the Beast of Jersey. As Pierce was growing up on the island, the Beast became the kid's boogeyman, and that's what inspired him to start making this film. However, the real case of the Beast of Jersey is not at all close to the case portrayed in the film. The real-life case had occult overtones. Another case that Pierce had said inspired his film was the Soham murders committed by Ian Huntley, who had his girlfriend Maxine Carr provide him a false alibi. That became such a notorious tabloid case over here that it was also clearly inspiration for the Black Mirror episode called White Bear, which I'm not familiar with that one. Yeah. Secondly, it's worth pointing out that M.R. James, who wrote the story on Night of the Demon, wrote the story that Night of the Demon is based on, is one of Britain's greatest writers of ghost stories. There's so many of them, and so well read that for years BBC adapted them to be broadcast at Christmas.
Nice. That's really cool.
Loving all your shows, and we'll be Patreoning soon. Oh my goodness,
you.
That would be very generous from English Colin.
All right, here's a letter from... Thank you for all of that. That's really cool backstory. Here's one from Pedro. Hello, Bibbs and Whitney. Greetings once again from Brazil. I am usually a fan of slower-paced film, but I'm an easy sleeper. Sorry, my bad. I work all day, and I can only watch movies at night before I go to sleep. So I struggled watching Tarkovsky's Andrei Rublev for the past 3 nights, and finally finished it. And while I really enjoyed the movie, I started to think if its pacing was too slow. It's a 3.5-hour movie, which is tiresome anyway, but I was able to watch The Bridge on the River Kwai in one sitting last week, which is also long, 2 hours and 47 minutes, though more engaging for me.
Well, heck of a lot more goes on in a movie like Bridge on the River Kwai.
Fair enough. So where do you guys think the line is drawn? What makes a good slow burn, and what makes a movie a snooze fest? Also, do you have any instances of great movies you've fallen asleep to? Thank you, and keep up with the great work. Couple of questions there. First off, I want to talk about the phrase slow burn, because I think it's not synonymous with slow. When I use the word slow burn, what I mean is it's gonna explode, but it's gonna take its time getting there, and it's gonna be worth the wait.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily every slow movie.
And slow burn, as a slow burn movie progresses, you can see progress. You can see the character becoming increasingly frazzled or more and more insane. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a slow burn comedy.
Sure.
That where the burn is so strong, I get really uncomfortable watching it, actually. It really stresses me out to watch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
That's a really good point. That is a good slow burn movie. In a horror realm, you got something like The House of the Devil, where you argue that nothing happens in it, but you're supposed to be waiting.
There's a lot that's really percolating there.
And every little detail builds and builds and builds. But the thing with a movie is that a movie, you can watch a movie now, at home whenever you can, finish it over a couple of nights, and that's fine. That's the way life goes. But theoretically, a movie is intended to be consumed in one sitting.
Yeah.
And it is indeed on the movie to keep your attention that whole time, for its entire running time. When we say a film has bad pacing, what we mean is the movie isn't doing what it needs to do to keep our attention. And that's a problem. However, not every story is super eventful. Some stories can be really small and intimate. But if you're aware of that and you know what kind of movie you're getting into, some small intimate movies are absolutely riveting.
Yeah.
So, but every movie is kind of working on a different scale because it depends on what their story they're telling.
Meanwhile, there are movies that are, frantically paced that I find just the most boring things in the world. Just
Eragon.
Eragon is briskly paced.
A lot happens in it.
There's plenty going on. There's a lot of characters, a lot of exciting visuals, and it's dull as toast.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to where that line is, it's just a matter of how good the film is, I suppose. No film is going to be faster than it needs to be.
Well, I don't know about that. Ebert had a line. which was I might be bungling it slightly.
It was no great film is too long and no bad film is short enough.
Yeah. And we've actually, you can see this if you watch like a lot of director's cuts. Sometimes the longer version of a movie is better paced. And as a result, it feels like it's flying by. But then you watch the truncated, crappy studio cut of something like Blade Runner, and you're just like, oh god, I don't care anymore. And then I fall asleep. But the other question I like on here is movies you've fallen asleep to. Now, the older I get, the harder it is for me to pull an all-nighter, and sometimes I try to watch movies late at night. So sometimes I just kid a little snoozy and it has nothing to do with the movie. But here's a movie I am legit embarrassed that I fell asleep during. Eyes Without a Face.
You fell asleep during Eyes Without a Face.
I fell asleep during Eyes Without a Face in a theater. I paid for a ticket.
Oh my goodness.
I know. I think I was just super fucking tired.
Yeah, okay.
The best falling asleep, I've only fallen asleep in a theater, I think, twice. That one time, I'm embarrassed. I know it's a great movie. But there was a retrospective of Hercules movies at the UCLA archive.
Like Steve Reeves level.
Yeah, like 35 millimeter prints of Steve Reeves type Hercules movies. It was so cool. But I was in film school at the time, and I was like pulling like 20-hour days in like the editing day. So I was super exhausted, but there was no fucking way I was going to miss Mario Bava's Hercules in the Haunted World on the big screen. That is a movie in which Hercules fights Dracula as played by Christopher Lee. And he goes to hell. It's insane. And yet I fell asleep. And what the worst part was, I didn't fall asleep for long. You know the thing where you nod off for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. But I fell asleep just long enough to have a nightmare. And then I went, ah!
Oh no!
And I stole the entire theater, and everyone's just like, it's not that scary.
The first time I tried to make it through James Cameron's Aliens, I fell asleep.
Wow.
It was at a midnight show, and I'd been working all day, so I was just exhausted, and there's nothing grabbing me in that movie, so I just sort of fell asleep.
Oh, you're so insane. I love Aliens so much. You're mad.
After alienating everybody by saying I don't like Lord of the Rings, I'll alienate the rest by saying I'm not. I prefer Alien to Aliens.
Hang on. You can't alienate someone by saying you don't like aliens. You alienated them.
Oh, God. Come here so I can smack you.
Okay.
But let me read another letter.
Please do.
Here's one from Michael. Hey, guys, hope you're both doing well. I watched Bibbs on Movie Fights recently.
Hi.
And he revealed he auditioned for the role of William in Almost Famous.
That's true.
I was just wondering if Bibbs could expound upon this whole situation, as I wonder if he has any fun tidbits about it.
Okay, so I was in high school, and they were looking for an unknown to play the lead in a new Cameron Crowe movie. And I guess they were going to various drama schools and drama classes throughout at least Southern California, and they were looking for anyone who basically could look like a young Cameron Crowe. And I fit the description, so I got an audition. And I go in. I'd been on one audition before in my entire life because I was in like a choir, and they needed a kid to do a quick walk-on singing bit in an episode of Picket Fences. I did not get the role.
Okay.
But I come in and I do this speech, and it's basically the scene from Almost... They changed it a little bit so you couldn't tell what the plot was, so no one could like leak anything to the internet. But it was basically the scene where the kid in Almost Famous talks to Penny Lane, who would eventually be played by that really nice lady who was in Almost Famous.
Kate Hudson? Okay. That really nice lady.
I assume she's nice. I didn't act with her or anything. But it was a scene with him and Kate Hudson in which he's explaining that,
the Penny Lane character.
She loves this guy, but he doesn't respect you, and he, there's that big bit in the movie. I did that, and apparently I did really good. I got a call back.
Okay.
So I'm feeling great. And therein lied the tragedy, because I got way too excited and I overacted.
Oh no.
And it didn't go great, and then they gave me like a quick side, we'll read this, and there was two very tiny roles from the middle of the movie. One was for the guy who tells Billy Crudup that there's acid in the cups and the red cups at the party. One line role. And the other one was the guy who drives in with the truck and says, "Hey, you're Russell from Stillwater. We're just good Oklahoma people, man." So I read for those, and I was still too jazzed at getting a call back, and I blew it entirely, and that was that.
I'm so sorry. You and like 1,000 other kids have that same story.
I'm sure there's a ton. Like, every role in the world, there's someone out there who didn't get that role, and that's a story they get to tell someday. Think about this. Every movie you see, pretty much, there are tiny roles. To someone who you never saw them in another movie, but they played a waiter, or they're the guy at the DEF CON 5 computer who says like, "Sir, the Russians have fired the missiles," and that's their only thing they'll ever do. But by God, they have a copy of that DVD and they show it to everyone they date. Like that's.
And then there's the whole thing. You know, there's no small parts. There's just small actors, and like occasionally you'll get like a maid who says somebody's on the phone. They've got to talk to you. In the movie The Birdcage. Like the maid leans in, and it's like she leans in from another dimension. You're getting a phone call. They've got to talk to you. And then she's like sort of slinks out. We never see her again. Like you can tell this actress is just bored.
Gonna make sure someone notices me.
Lean in, like she doesn't even share the camera with Gene Hackman, who she's talking to. She's probably just like B-roll. She's not even talking to the director.
I love the moments when you're watching an old movie and there's someone who just has the like 2 lines or whatever, and it is someone who became famous later, but now it's super distracting. And in my experience, it's usually William H. Macy. Like we just talked about Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon. He shows up in that movie, has a couple of lines with Vanity. Is it Vanity?
Vanity,
yeah. It's Vanity, yeah. He shows up, he has a couple of lines. I interviewed William H. Macy once and I asked him about that. And he's like, what I remember about that movie was this jacket they had me wear that was worth more than what they paid me, and I should have kept it.
That's really funny.
But I was just watching The Client again recently. He shows up as a doctor for one scene. He was no one.
Weird.
He was no one at the time. Like
he wasn't anything till Fargo. Fargo is really what put him on the map.
He'd been in a couple of movies, but like he was just like his biggest thing I could think of was that really great bit in House of Games. Like he's got like one great scene in it, but like he was not a famous actor until then. So like it's just super weird. All right,
so that was your brush with fame.
That was I guess so. Here's one from Cody.
Hi, Cody.
Hello, Whitney and Bibbs. I hope both of you are doing great.
Sir.
My name is Cody, and I'm writing you from South Carolina. My brother was stationed there for a while in the Marines. I visited.
Nice. I drove through there when I was 10.
My question is, how do you weigh the technicals of a movie, direction, acting, cinematography, versus your actual enjoyment of it? I have seen 2 movies recently, Hereditary and Upgrade, that I would never call bad movies and that are very well made, but I did not personally connect with them. When you are critiquing a film, how do you weigh enjoyment versus technicals? Thank you for taking this question. P.S. Thank you for all the great content you put out every week. I have lost 65 pounds since Christmas. Congratulations.
Well done.
And I know every week I can put in my headphones and be entertained during my workout with both critically acclaimed and canceled too soon. So again, thank you. And seriously, that's quite an achievement. Good
glad
job.
we can help you out with that.
But that's a really good question and something that a lot of critics wrestle with all the time.
And it's something that we can say in our review. We were just talking about The Incredibles. The Incredibles, and I just sort of skimmed past this, does have pretty impeccable technicals. I love the design. I love the characters. I love the music. It's really terrific. And I have to start putting in caveats when I get into stories and themes. And I think if it has story or character or thematic problems, I'm probably going to mention those first because that's the impression that it left on me most strongly. And the technicals are going to be completely secondary to all of that. The same goes if I really loved it. If it has something like thematic or some character moments that I really, really enjoyed, I'm willing to overlook technical problems. And if it has great technicals, that'll just complement what I already love about it.
I expect when I see a movie a certain baseline competence. I expect it to be in focus. I expect the sound design to be okay. I expect these to be things that I don't have to remark upon.
Well, it's why we should never say the film was well shot.
Yeah,
it's like the most meaningless critique.
I usually only add something like that in if I was just being like really critical and I want to make it clear that I think the movie overall is competent. So I might throw in a line where I just rattle off. It's well shot. It's well acted. All of these things work, but blank. Just to be clear. But yeah, generally speaking, in my review, if I don't mention something, it means it's fine.
Yeah.
It means it's perfectly adequate, perfectly fine, nothing wrong with it, but also nothing really to talk about. I single out, apart from the basics that every review needs, basic description of the plot, I single out the things that are noteworthy. If the cinematography is noteworthy for being good, I will say so. If it's noteworthy for being bad, I'll say that too. But at the heart of this is really something really important, which is a movie can be totally competent and not make an impact on you. And that has more to do, I think if that's the case, if you can recognize that the movie is very well made, but it didn't do it for you, you're probably not connecting with the thematic material.
Yeah.
There's probably something in that doesn't speak to you. It doesn't hit your anxieties. If it's a horror movie, it's not something you find particularly funny due to your personal experience. If it's a comedy, if it's a drama, it's just something you haven't really maybe related to. Sometimes it's just you're not in the mood that day, and then you revisit it a couple years later, like, what was I talking about? That movie was amazing. Holy shit. I must have had a really shit day. But, yeah, finding that balance, finding that realization that storytelling competence is not necessarily the same as being good is something that a lot of critics have to struggle with, and something that a lot of fans of critics don't always get. Like, oh, how can you call this movie bad? It's nothing wrong with the cinematography or the acting.
Well,
it's like, that doesn't make it good either. It just means it's okay.
It just means it did its job. There's a tendency, especially when it comes to like a lot of the bigger movies, where they put like hundreds of millions of dollars into the design, and the production is as slick as you can like slick as an eel, and a lot of audience members can be like distracted by how slick and how good everything is and how well paced and well edited it is, that they're not really noticing that the film might be a little empty. You look at. I don't want to point to the Transformers movies because I don't think those are actually technically very good. But it may be one of the lesser Marvel films like Ant-Man or something. It's like, that's a really slick production. And you can be thinking, this is a really good, solid film. Well, but there's nothing really to this movie. And you can actually be distracted from a film's maybe potential callousness by how just well put together it is, how well constructed it is. That should be a film's birthright, really. Like, not that every film needs to be slick, but, when you're making a certain kind of, like, big-budget Hollywood movie, they should be basely competent in some sort of way.
Well, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about mediocrity.
And they should be, at least vaguely creative, doing something a little bit new or a little bit different.
I expect everyone to do their job, and their job should, if they only come out and do their job, and no one's really doing anything particularly interesting, good or bad, or completely incompetent or well beyond the call of duty, you end up with Eragon, which is fine. It's like, I don't hate it. It's just sort of like, oh yeah, and then you don't remember it because there's nothing remarkable about it, good or bad. It's difficult. Yeah. Let's do one more.
Okay. I had one here.
You can do it.
Here's one from, hold on, let me see how he signs this. This one's from Sammy.
Okie dokie.
Hello, Sammy. Good day, gentlemen. It's been a while since my last letter, and there are a number of topics that must be addressed. Firstly, it has been almost a year since I gave up giving a shit about Star Wars, and I couldn't be happier. However, I'm going through and rewatching past Star Trek episodes and falling in love all over again, even though watching Discovery has made me want to scream with every episode. Yeah, Discovery is... I'll be polite and say it's problematic.
Okay.
Secondly, Avengers Infinity War. Meh.
Okay.
That's his entire critique.
Fair enough.
Finally, Bibbs, you mentioned you stopped reading comic books due to event fatigue.
Yeah.
However, I may recommend reading the DC Rebirth Initiative going over the last couple of years. It's gone back to what everyone loves about the characters, as well as introducing new interesting aspects to the universe and letting writers tell their stories with little to no interruptions.
Short answer, I actually started picking up some of those.
All right.
Nothing really grabbed me.
Oh, okay.
But it was indeed better than what I remember.
Yeah, okay. There's another one. Also, Whitney, Green Lantern is the tits. I think Lethal Weapon meets a Star Trek-like Odyssey spanning the galaxy with decades of mythology and good old-fashioned sci-fi. I'm sure it's all there in the comics. It's not there in that movie.
Fair enough.
Cheers, lads. Keep up the good work, Sammy.
Oh, thank you, Sammy. That's awesome. Let's do one more. That wasn't really... here's one from Jamil. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. From the Mongolian Gobi, greetings, WS and WB. I recently found critically acclaimed and now listen to it as I travel to and from work by camel. I kid, the maintenance fees in a camel are way too damn high. Okay.
You could have been on a camel.
I don't know. We believe you. I don't know. We don't know you. I love the genre of films where the villain is the protagonist, with my favorites being Nightcrawler and Die Hard. I consider Hans the protagonist there.
Fair.
Okay.
All right.
More specifically, I love the subgenre when the villain as the protagonist doesn't get redemption or have a change of heart or pays for their villainy. Other than mobster crime dramas, I can't think of many others. My question is, why is this subgenre so undeserved? If it is, I think underserved, sorry. And can you recommend any films in it?
Well, I can recommend plenty.
First off, why is the genre so underserved? And the answer to that question, I think, has a lot to do with the production code, which for about half of, a significant portion of the 20th century said that bad guys literally couldn't be the protagonist of a film unless they got their comeuppance at the end or had a change of heart. And as a result, people still made amazing movies throughout, but they had to come around full circle. And so the kinds of movies in which the bad guys are bad guys and basically get rewarded for being bad guys, which can be very controversial, very challenging, sometimes arguably even dangerous, you could argue, since they send a very difficult message. They weren't very easy to make, especially in America, for a long amount of time. However, they are out there. Here's an example: Whiplash. Whiplash is about an abusive teacher, and arguably it says by the end of the movie that maybe he was right.
That abusing his student was the right thing to do.
Yeah, like if one student achieves greatness because he was a monster, then it was all worth it, right? And I think the movie doesn't entirely tell you that yes, it's right, but arguably it does.
I think it does. I think it very strongly does.
I think that makes it fascinating. I also think it makes it insanely dark. But that's a good example.
There's a lot of darkness within humanity, and a lot of people don't go to movies for that. I think a lot of mainstream audiences, or maybe it's just the studios, feel that mainstream audiences don't want to see that darkness reflected back. Perhaps the studios feel that audiences are going to see their film for like a reaffirmation or excitement, and not necessarily a dark examination of how death and cynicism are the driving forces.
Life is really hard, and being told by fiction that maybe things will be okay and bad people will get their comeuppance can be really reassuring.
Really, really comforting. So yeah, to have the opposite message, I love getting the opposite message. I love it, being confronted. But I think it's just sort of skittish studio heads who don't want to necessarily back those kinds of movies. That said, you can go anywhere and find these kinds of movies all the time, sometimes hiding in plain sight. Bad Lieutenant is a really terrific movie about just a scoundrel who doesn't really learn a whole lot over the course of the feature film.
Starship Troopers is a really subversive example, where they never come out and say it, but all the contextual information is there. Humanity is the invading fascistic force. They are the bad guys in that movie. By
the end of the movie, when they're wearing like just straight up Nazi uniforms, it's pretty clear by then.
But yeah, even before then, all the subtext, the bugs that were like so horrible, they're fighting back. They did not start this. We are the invading armada, and it's all basically a fascistic propaganda piece for why you should join the war effort. Paul Verhoeven completely subverted the point of that book, and it was fucking genius. I love that movie.
It's way, way smarter than it ever got credit for when it first came out. And there are plenty of movies just about killers who get away with it.
Natural Born Killers.
Natural Born Killers is another one. Man Bites Dog is a Belgian mockumentary that's actually really hard to watch. Golly, there's so many.
Something like Cannibal.
Heck, Scarface. He does get his in the end, but he doesn't feel any kind of sense of redemption.
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer is one of the darkest movies ever made. It will ruin your night. It's brilliant, but it will ruin your night if you try to watch it for fun.
One that I saw I wish I had seen it before the end of the year because I would have included it on my top 10 list, but Martin Scorsese's The Wolf of Wall Street.
That's another one where kind of his comeuppance comes.
Not really.
Not enough.
I think the point of that movie, in fact, is that comeuppance doesn't register for a guy like Jordan Belfort.
That's fair.
I think it's an incredibly important movie, The Wolf of Wall Street, and kind of really dissects, especially in the post-yuppie era, and now that we have a yuppie in the White House, that it's really kind of important to examine what the end goal of this massive kind of wealth accumulation really is. And The Wolf of Wall Street argues you get to that point so you have the privilege of ignoring conventional morality and being able to do with whatever sick shit you can think of.
Yeah.
And I,
good point.
It's gosh, it's such an exhilarating movie. I really, really love it.
A Clockwork Orange is a great example right there. That's a guy who is an unrepentant monster, and he is forced to become a repentant monster, and it does not take.
And it's not what society needs from him.
Yeah. Here's a good example. It's a samurai movie I'm a huge fan of called Sword of Doom.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one, too.
Starring Tatsuya Nakadai, who I think is one of the most underrated actors in the world. It opens with like a peasant, and he's an old man, and he's with his daughter, and he's at a shrine, and he prays like, oh, gods, please take me away. Let me die so that my daughter can live free and live her life and not be beholden to an old man. And then a samurai shows up and says, okay, slice. And it turns out he's a sociopathic samurai, and it's a really incredible motion picture. Like, it's really turns the whole genre on its head.
God, there's so many of this genre to choose from. See No Country for Old Men. There's just a lot. There's a lot of really
God, I'm trying to think now. What else?
Trying to think of like a bad example of the genre,
like a shitty one.
Yeah, like what's a film about just like a horrible maniac who does horrible things and gets away with it, and just there's, I guess, a lot of those torture movies that came out in the 2000s.
There's some lame ones there.
A lot of those really stunk.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty that are just sort of indulgent and don't really serve a point. Usually in a story about a villain whose uppance never comes, we're supposed to be horrified.
Yeah.
Like Nightcrawler, you're not supposed to go, yeah, good for him. You're supposed to go, that is the worst case scenario. That is fucking terrible, and we should do everything in our power to prevent that from actually being a successful human being. Like, that is a problem. And yet, look around. So thank you very much for writing in. Again, everybody, you can email us letters@criticallyacclaimed.net. If you still have our old email address, we're still getting those letters, don't worry, but our new address is letters@criticallyacclaimed.net. You can read our criticism from throughout the internet, all in one place at criticallyacclaimed.net. That's new content as well as links to our content elsewhere. You can follow me on Twitter at William Bibiani.
I'm at Whitney Seibold.
Critically Acclaimed is at Critic Acclaim. Critically Acclaimed was apparently too long for Twitter. Thanks.
They're all about brevity over there.
Apparently. Next week, we'll be back with one of those musicians' vanity projects and a great movie to pair it with. We will also be reviewing the new releases Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, Damsel, and The Catcher Was a Spy. Yes.
The Catcher was a spy.
So I'm told.
The pitcher was a baker.
Yeah. The second baseman was a candlestick maker. Who knew? Everything's fascinating. So that's what's going on. Don't forget, check out the movie trivia Schmoedown later this week for our big competitive match against MODOK. I'm very excited.
I hope we win.
Me too. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Never forget,
everyone's a critic.
I want to go to the midnight show. I'm sorry, what?